Well, we left our homes up in Bristol Bay for the waters of Miami shore. With a hippo at the helm and our severance pay, we fly the pirate flag once more. Pirate radio with the ship and crew, we get wind in our sails and the sky is blue. There's a devil up our nose, so much work to do. Pirate radio. Well, the ship is a wreck, shit stains the deck as Michael hollers fellas make more. And Billy is a worry that he's got the scurvy, cause Chris ate all the limes in store. Pirate radio with the ship and crew, we get wind in our sails and the sky is blue. There's a devil up our nose, so much work to do. Pirate radio. Now Roy is a chum when he's on the rum, he's the glue when we spring a leak. And Stu is a mess, he does less and less, and Greg sounded worse each week. Pirate radio with the ship and crew, we get wind in our sails and the sky is blue. There's a devil up our nose, so much work to do. Pirate radio. Someone yelled ahoy, who the hell's cabin boy? Somebody named Tony, who knows? Once we got the skip, well, a mean jumped ship, cause he knew we would sail to gold. Pirate radio with the ship and crew, we get wind in our sails and the sky is blue. There's a devil up our nose, so much work to do for the pirate radio.
Well, 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 David Samson, the responsible David Samson financial advisor. Look at you with all that egg on your face as GameStop and AMC are soaring yet again. If you took my financial advice, which was super serious, you'd be 1,000-year right now. You find the humor in this. We're soaring back up to the moon.
That word. No, I've literally never heard that word before. That's just funny. That was a legitimate laugh. And I just finished Nothing Personal, and I laughed at something I said, but it's way more fun to laugh at something you say.
So you're a financial expert, yes? You know your way.
No.
No? I thought you knew your way around the stock market. I know you have
That's
a law.
That's a Grand Canyon away from being an expert.
Okay, well, you've got a law background, right?
I am a trained lawyer. I was on Wall Street. I definitely know what to do, how to do it, but an expert?
Wait.
I would never have the hubris to use that word.
You were a lawyer that worked on Wall Street. So what exactly did you do before the Marlins? Oh, well, before the Expos, actually.
I started off as running my own company in Europe called News Travels Fast.
Yeah, I remember that. But you mentioned that you were a lawyer. I'm trying to get to before that.
I went to law school, passed the bar,
okay,
and didn't get the job I wanted, so started a business in Europe. The job I wanted in law was to be an assistant district attorney in Manhattan.
Oh.
And I did not get hired. I made it through 3 out of the 5 rounds and got rejected. And I was so pissed off because back in those days, Manhattan was the greatest DA's office in the country, and I didn't want to work for Bronx or Brooklyn or Queens. I thought that I was a Manhattanite. It was like insulting to not work in Manhattan. So I said, fuck this, and I decided to start a business.
Which
greatest
was
decision I ever made.
Yeah, it was.
It made my whole career. That decision made my career.
Did you end up selling that company? Yeah, right? You sold that newspaper company?
It just stopped. What were my assets? I bought papers every week and delivered them.
Oh, so you...
I literally just stopped.
Yeah, but you stopped with profits, yes?
The company made money. Absolutely. But the internet, it was not a long-term company. That company would never exist today.
So you saw the writing on the wall as to where the industry was going.
No, I was wrong about the writing on the wall because I assumed the internet wasn't real, but I met a guy on a plane from Morgan Stanley who said, listen, I love your business, but you're going to have a problem with this internet thing. And I said, no, I won't. He said, here's my card. Call if you ever do. And so I called him maybe 6 months later, and he interviewed me, and I got a job.
And that man was Jeffrey Loria.
That man was David Darst.
This is David Darst.
The guy at Morgan Stanley.
I know, but he hired you for Morgan Stanley?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So
I was the only non-MBA to be hired.
All
the
right.
only JD in my whole class.
All right. Well, this whole thing started with me trying to explore your Wall Street background, and you looked at me like I was asking the wrong question, and here you are working for Morgan Stanley.
Yeah, I worked for Morgan Stanley for several years. I passed all the tests. I did derivatives, like derivative swaps for people, like collateralized derivatives, and traded and made money, and I did everything but cocaine and Margot Robbie, and it wasn't for lack of trying.
So you're feeling the FOMO right now as I'm soaring to the moon with my AMC stock, yes?
So Yes. I'm feeling the FOMO of not buying Carnival at 14. And it's the same, by the way, it's the same FOMO I feel in baseball when we trade a guy and the guy ends up being great, or we get a guy who we think is great and he ends up sucking. So,
what's the greatest example of trading away a guy that ended up being great, that you had as a prospect, that you rated highly, but it wasn't working out, and you thought you had to come to the realization that the ceiling isn't as high as you'd hoped, and then you pull the trigger, and then, damn it, I was right all along on this person?
The greatest players we ever traded, we knew were going to be good, and we were okay trading them. I mean, you have to go back to Adrian Gonzalez, and you have to go back to Miggy. You have to go to players like that. But there were some players who we traded who ended up being serviceable. We didn't think Robert Andino would ever be a big leaguer. He played for us, but we thought he wouldn't be good, and he ended up actually.
What a shitty biggest mistake, right? Andino plays a little second base for the Orioles, and all of a sudden it's Samson's
big leaguer.
Greatest career.
Colin Moran. We didn't think Colin Moran would make it, and he made it. He plays for the Pirates now. Anyway, what's up, Dan?
Did you, every time that you guys called up Chris Aguila, were you guys like, this guy's no good?
Yes.
All right, good.
Who else did you do that with? Who else did you do? Who else? You never did that with Volstad. Did you do that like 10 times with Volstad at the end?
You have no idea. The Chris Volstad story is really something.
Tell us
It's just not being willing. I mean, we're not doing this for the show, but
we're not. Wait, we've been doing show
this
entire
is
time.
The show?
I thought we were doing the show. Yes, please continue.
I already told Chris to bleep out your F-bombs.
Please continue.
Yeah, we've been doing
By the
show.
way, that is a violation.
No, it is not.
Wait,
this is supposed
apologize
to be
to Chris Aguila.
because you always say, "Hey, yeah, all right, we're going to start now. Ready? You do this. 3, 2, 1."
Yeah.
We always also say that you're relentlessly authentic, so it's good for people to catch you in your unguarded.
By the way, there's no difference.
That's correct.
No difference.
Well, it's good for people
there's
to see
that. There's no difference other than if you did that to another guest. I'm not sure that
I would never. I would never dream of doing that to another guest.
We respect all our other guests way too much to ever do something like that to them.
So I apologize
Mike,
to you.
Too much.
You've burned your bridges with Robert Andino and Chris Aguila. I'm very sorry.
Who else? Give us some more names.
I don't care. I mean, listen,
it sounded
Chris
like you were
Aguila
headed into a Volstad bridge burning.
Here's the thing about players. We would call them 4A players. And a successful organization would not have 4A players on their team. A 4A player is too good to be in AAA and not good enough to be in the big leagues. And that's the reality of what happened.
The Aguila zone.
It's the Aguila. By the way, it's the Miguel Tejada zone. It's the Chris Aguila zone. It's the Chris Volstad zone. But Chris Volstad.
Miguel Tejada.
There had to be a different Tejada.
A different Miguel. What Tejada?
Miguel Tejera.
Okay, you said Tejada.
Did I say Tejada?
Yeah.
You say Tejada. I say Tejada.
I say Tejera. So here's what happens when you have a bad team. You bring up people who you know are marginal players, and you hope that you catch lightning in a bottle, and you bring them up because you have no one else at all to possibly bring up. But you do it knowing that you have a problem. And that's what many of these players were. But with Volstad, it's different. Volstad was a high draft pick, don't forget. Volstad had a great big body. He was like 6'7". He had an arm angle where you could hide the ball, and it didn't work. By the way, we had a draft in 2005. We had all these great picks. We drafted all these pitchers at the top of the draft, and they all stunk. God, why are you making me talk about that?
Well, I feel like there's more meat on this Chris Volstad.
Yes,
bone.
where's the Volstad story you were going to tell?
The Volstad story is that he was one of the players who had and he's a good guy. Please don't get me wrong. And he actually had a good career.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Not as good as I wanted him to.
Oh, this is going to be good.
But he's a player, and there's many of these, and there's many executives like this, and many radio hosts and podcast hosts who have a delusional thought about what their skill is and what their ceiling is.
Thank you.
And when players have that, what happens is they don't know how to deal with their own failures because they're not willing to grow from them. They're not willing to listen to them. And that's what happened with many of our players and many players in the big leagues. You know, Jeff Conine taught me something that we should teach. Being the best physical specimen and the best physical tool guy in baseball or in any sport guarantees you nothing. Because if you're empty between the ears, you are not going to be a professional baseball player.
word association, when I just say to you, first name that comes to mind, the Marlin who was most delusional in that particular respect, where they just had an outsized lack of either self-awareness or confidence that was unearned.
A guy I'm still in touch with, Jeremy Hermida.
You knew it. Mike just shouted. Mike just shouted, and he did like Tiger Woods winning at the Masters, doing a fist pump because he was so happy. He mouthed Jeremy Hermida because he was a 5-tool player.
How did you know I was going to say that?
Because he had it all, and I hung out with him once, and he carried himself like he knew that he was going places. And I'm sure he actually had a really difficult time coming to grips with the fact that his career didn't pan out. It was so easy for him, everything, even his first at-bat in the majors, which I was there for. I went out and bought tickets because I was like, Hermida is going to be headed to the Hall of Fame. This is a can't-miss prospect. First at-bat, grand slam, holy shit, we got a generational player, and then it just doesn't work out for the kid.
Such a pretty swing. Whittingham, put it on the poll. Who carried themselves with arrogance that was undeserved, like they were going places more during that time period? Was it Jeremy Hermida or Mike Ryan? Which of the two carried themselves more with that attitude? You and him must have been like crushing the town.
The automatic slims with Aguila, with ripped up jeans and flip-flops after a few heaters at Tarpon Bend. Man, what a time. Hermida would rock the Affliction shirts.
Do you remember Hermida's first at-bat, by the way?
I was there for it. I just detailed it. Grand slam.
Do you remember what happened after? Do you remember how that whole thing happened?
I drank a lot of beers.
Hermida was our top prospect. He had the sweetest lefty stroke.
Oh, yeah.
He was a can't-miss guy.
Couldn't miss.
Can't miss. He played with a pulse rate of 30, and I've talked to him about this. That's just how he's wired. He showed no emotion on the field. He looked like he didn't care. He looked like he didn't like baseball, and it used to drive us absolutely crazy. We would ask him to please, we're begging you, show something. Get into a fight with somebody. We were like, just punch someone in the clubhouse.
You guys
do
were
anything.
Wait.
And after he hit the grand slam, the view was to the moon. It's as though he had bought AMC, right? That was the feeling. And guess what? Didn't quite work.
You guys were body language guys. You wanted him to run hard to first like David Eckstein?
We are very much body language guys. That's actually how we would decide to send players down. The fans and the media would call for us to make moves way before we wanted to make them, because we didn't focus on whether someone was 0 for 20. We would focus on what they would do after they'd make out. Their body language.
Wait a second. You were body language guys, but on the other hand, you're buying Hanley Ramirez a necklace. His body language must have driven you crazy.
Hold on. Hanley Ramirez, there's some players. Hanley Ramirez never had the I don't care body language.
Ooh,
he had the I don't
Hutton.
necessarily like baseball language. He had the I don't want to be a good teammate language. He had the I want to be Manny Ramirez, so I better bulk up my body by doing whatever it is I did to bulk up my body language. He had the you better sign me to a long-term deal because you have a new ballpark, and then I'm going to play like crap in the first season of the ballpark on purpose body language.
Whoa.
He had the I don't really care to be a good teammate, and I'm not going to go after a ball and play hard language. But he did not have the sort of dead Hermida language.
I didn't know that there were all these sorts of branches on the bad body language tree, but Tommy Hutton was basically encapsulating all of that body language into just bad body language nightly for you guys on television.
He's the language tree is like 1,000 branches. And so I would often talk to fans. We would give away sometimes for charity. We'd let fans come watch games with us for an inning or 2 innings or 3 innings, or talk to people not in the game who thought they could do our jobs better than we could, and many times they could. But we would watch baseball games way differently than you would, Mikey. We're watching for way different things. We are paying attention to little nuances of the game, positions of players, what they're doing when the ball's not hit to them, whether or not they're literally playing the game the way we have asked them to play, what they're doing in the clubhouse, how they're reacting to players when the cameras aren't on. So we're paying attention to all that stuff.
I'm not exactly 100% sure of the timeline, but the Tommy Hutton thing was very controversial. Marlins fans love Tommy Hutton. I don't think Jeffrey Loria liked him. Can you explain to me the whole Tommy Hutton controversy?
Enough for the Tommy Hutton thing.
Why?
First of all,
I had never asked you.
The narrative of Tommy Hutton is that he was a Hall of Fame color. What's it called? You're
Commentator?
Color commentator.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Greatest of all time.
Right. Like Dave Van Horn.
The
like Hall of he got you. Like the Hall of Famer Dave Van Horn. That's right. He got
so,
you.
I got
let me tell you about
Admit it right now. He was doing
broadcast
broadcasts remotely. I heard a phone ring one time.
Got you.
Admit it.
Dave Van Horn is a Hall of Famer. He was a Hall of Famer. He is just past his prime. The problem with Dave Van Horn is he just got older. It happens. Father Time is undefeated, and it's hard on radio when it's a short fly ball to the second baseman.
Tell Tom Brady that.
Home run.
Tell Tom Brady that. Father Time is losing.
No, Father Time will beat Tom Brady.
Okay.
If Tom Brady gets an extension from the Buccaneers,
they're going to give him an extension.
Then you know that there's whatever.
I know what you guys were trying. We'll get back to Tommy, but I know what you guys were doing with DVH. DVH, you always brought in the young blood, Roxy Bernstein, Jesse Agler, who was, I thought, very good. You would always try to spruce up the radio commentary because I think you guys were keenly aware of what had happened at DVH. You said he was a little past his prime. I think he was scores of years beyond his prime.
I love the idea of bringing in the young hottie, Roxy Bernstein.
It was such a great name. No way that was his real name.
That was his real name, and then it was Glenn Geffner, who's really good. But Dave Van Horn, listen, how do you deal with an aging superstar? How do you deal with an aging superstar?
Minor league contract.
Well, in the case of Tommy Hutton, you fire him.
So let me just explain what happened with Tommy Hutton so we can end this once and for all. Guess who paid Tommy Hutton? Just guess.
Fox?
Jeffrey?
Fox?
Good guess. Fox.
Okay.
Not Jeffrey. Guess who has hiring and firing of the TV analyst and play-by-play guy?
This
Fox.
is convenient. This is convenient.
Are you alleging? I have not heard this.
Not alleging. This is not an alleging, Batard. This is an actual. Do we have consultation rights? Yes, we do. Do we have the right to say we would not mind a change? Yes, we do. Do we have the final say of whether a change is made? No, we don't.
Was it done?
The reason Tommy Hutton was let go is he asked for a raise on a per game basis, along with doing fewer games.
Was it with your objection that he was let go in any way, or did you nod and allow for an assassination?
I did more than nod.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what I did. I don't want to celebrate. Listen, Tommy Hutton, we had a problem with Tommy. The problem with Tommy was that he had an issue with a lot of the players in the clubhouse. And I was not old in my career where I was able to properly navigate those issues. And in a relationship with players where I'm trying to do what's right for the company and I can't give them too many victories, I can't give the players meaningful victories because I'm running a business. This was one that was an easy victory because it was greased by Fox because they wanted to move on. They didn't want to pay as much. And I knew that it would be a victory for me in the clubhouse quietly because after he was let go, of course, people are saying he's the greatest. But privately, that wasn't the case.
So players would come to the front office and complain about Tommy Hutton?
To me. You have to realize they watch. So the TVs in the clubhouse, I watch games on mute to this day because when I listen to many broadcasters, they do not necessarily add anything to the game that I can add or that I already know. So I will generally watch on mute. The players watch on full blast. They want to hear what every broadcaster for every team feed is saying about themselves. And then you get on the team plane, and there's the guy who is saying that you loafed it, you didn't get the runner in, you didn't execute the play. It creates issues.
Did that happen on the team plane with Tommy plenty?
A lot of things happened on the team plane with Tommy. I mean, it was. Listen, it's not comfortable. It's another reason why we don't have media on the team plane, except in emergencies like hurricane or things like that, because it's uncomfortable. There needs to be some separation, and it's really that line has blurred even more today. And what you would refer to it as would be a homer.
Well, it sounds like Tommy was too critical for everybody.
He was the anti-homer.
That it sounds like he'd get the red ass, he'd criticize somebody, and the players didn't like that. Well, let's go back to the philosophy you were talking about, though. When you say you can't give the players too many victories, explain to me why that is, and explain to me some of the places where you had to wrestle with that, where you gave in and decided, okay, I'm going to give the players a victory here. Give us some examples.
An example is when I'd want players to do certain things in the community, and they would always balk because they don't have a lot of days off, they don't have a lot of time to themselves. And the reality is that what they would do is they would complain or not show up. And I would ask the players to do certain things that were meaningful to me. So I used, selfishly, certain community events for charities or certain appearances that either I was going to be at or that I thought were more worthy. They're all worthy. It's actually, running a foundation was one of the hardest things I did as team president, because you have to say no to so many worthy organizations. But I would let players say and win by saying, okay, don't show up. The game went long. I will be your talk piece to the community foundation department, to the community affairs department, and you can skip that. I would talk to the manager or to Jeffrey about certain rules of travel, certain rules of facial hair, certain rules of when there was going to be pee or what time the players need to report after a long game. I tried to do things like that because I knew those were penny ante things. And not working in the community, I don't want to say that those charities are penny ante. Those are penny ante financial things for me when I'm responsible for the big business in general.
Circling back, one last thing on the Tommy Hutton front, and you got kind of emotional about it, which I like. And part of the reason why you got emotional about it was this was a very unpopular move with the fan base. People really appreciated Tommy Hutton's candor and honesty. Did you guys underestimate his popularity with the fan base, or did you know that it was going to be a bad public relations situation for you guys?
Isn't there a third choice? You have to give me a C.
Okay.
What would C be, knowing me the way you know me? I don't want to set you up. We don't rehearse. We didn't even start the show yet. C. I don't care.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about the public relations. He never
literally.
It
didn't even occur to me.
Have you ever? Has there been an instance when it did? Has there been an instance when? Yeah, I guess Ozzie a little bit. That's a good one.
Hold on, that is a great one to talk about, and we can go third rail on this.
Well, we've talked about it some, but I don't think Dan has explored the spaces. So, Dan, why don't you get in there with the Ozzie Guillen stuff?
Well, it's fascinating for those who do not know. Okay, the backstory is this. It was a bit stunning that the Marlins hired this guy in the first place, because the idea of, and Ozzie Guillen had won a championship with the Chicago White Sox. People didn't think that was a possible thing. He went from very popular player, outspoken, fun, flamboyant, fluorescent, to manager who would say anything. I'm not even sure we've ever had someone like that in a baseball dugout leading a team before. I don't think. Maybe we have, but top of the food chain in terms of we'll just say anything, and not responsible in terms of professionalism or anything else. They've got to open a ballpark. They're trying to be splashy. They've hired a name manager. It's well outside of what they normally do. They go outside of their entire principle base when it comes to leadership, because they've always treated managers as middle management, but they go and hire a star, and he begins the proceedings in the center of Calle Ocho in Little Havana, in the center of all things Cuban in Miami. We're going to open a ballpark with the one thing that I'm almost literally the one thing you cannot say to this fan base, this customer base, where he goes off and says, Castro wasn't all that bad in some places.
And believe it or not, it actually wasn't that surprising of an opinion from him. It was just that he had the balls to say it publicly.
And he had gotten way too comfortable with I can say anything and no, you can't.
Yeah, I don't know. This wasn't exactly pre-internet. You kind of knew what his political stance was. Did this not come up in meetings?
No, that part, they didn't see that part. And that's where they get hurt by not having a Cuban at the top of the organization.
Or Venezuelan, because it was pretty obvious which side of things he was falling on.
Dan, if you think that we were going to hire a Cuban at the top of the organization on the small chance that there'd be somebody who would come in and say what he said about Castro, you're just wrong.
No, I'm saying that. No,
that's the first thing I was taught when
David,
I got to
I'm
Miami.
talking about that's why some things are important when it comes to diversity, because you need somebody else in your ear sometimes that have a perspective that perhaps you don't know about, or perhaps you have a blind spot about.
Yeah, so we were incredibly diverse, and I had. That was what I was going to tell you about the Ozzie Guillen Castro situation, is that I knew that was the third rail in Miami, because I was taught that literally the first day I came in, and the first meeting I ever had was about what you cannot say about Fidel Castro. And you have to learn and understand what's going on in this community, in the Miami community.
But I don't think you guys fully did, because his stance on Hugo Chavez was pretty known.
Yes, that is true, except in baseball circles and in my advisory circles, I was told that his stance on Venezuela is not the type of third rail that it is on Castro. Dan, do you disagree with that?
Say that again, because I don't know that there's a third rail in Miami that can be what Fidel Castro is. When we're talking about the single worst thing that you could say to this customer base if you want to get on the wrong side of things? You have seen the way that Cubans in Miami go politically as it comes to the state of Florida. It is the rare minority community that has a legitimate power in Miami.
And I apologize for interrupting your thought. My whole thing was always with Ozzie Guillen. He was pretty publicly a supporter of Hugo Chavez. So it's not about having like a Cuban in a front office saying, hey, he may be pro-Castro. It's what about, forget what's going to happen in the future. What about what he's already done? Because there was a big Venezuelan community down here in South Florida at the time. And while Hugo Chavez wasn't considered Fidel Castro, he was very strongly aligned with Fidel Castro. Certainly, this was within the realm of possibility. I'm surprised it was never brought up.
It was definitely, wait, hold on. It was definitely brought up, but it was dismissed by my advisors who are Cuban. You know their names, or I don't.
Well, Tony Perez is the highest ranking. Wasn't he the highest ranking Cuban in the organization?
No, not in terms of policy making. In terms of baseball, yes, but not in terms of policy making. In terms of who's in my ear advising me on these matters, I don't think I spoke to Tony about Cuba at all until after the Guillen incident, as a matter of fact, where I wanted to make sure that he would be on board and be helpful to us in trying to see if we could reclaim Ozzie. He just didn't want to do anything on screen because we were being filmed for the franchise that year. So this was all going on. There was such another layer of this. My first reaction when I was told what Ozzie
Let me just tell the audience, the franchise was a Showtime reality show 1 year about the Marlins. They allowed the cameras in the clubhouse. Go ahead. I'm sorry, David.
It was like Hard Knocks for baseball. And we were the last team to do it because after that, the franchise went out of business because the union and the players said never again, and the owners said no chance they'll ever do that again. I thought it was great, compelling TV because it actually happened. So much stuff happened during the course of that 2012 year. But in any case, so Ozzie Guillen says this. I get called in the middle of a Seder. I'm leading a Seder, and it literally is the night of Passover. I get called about the article. I excuse myself because I know calls need to be made now. Here's where I had the blind spot of being white and privileged. I actually thought my initial reaction was that while this is bad, and this is what is never supposed to happen, can we navigate out of it because he's Venezuelan? And I was told that night that there was no navigating, but there were 10 steps we were going to take. He was going to meet with I'm going to absolutely embarrass myself. And don't take this as me being I'm not anything. Is it the nuns who wear white are called something?
Oh, I should. I know this.
If you don't know, then
yes.
that's really
no. But
bad.
I should know this, and now this is embarrassing to me. Now you
way more for you.
They're like, oh man,
I've heard famous.
No, I've heard this
Miami.
throughout my childhood. Like this is now you've really embarrassed me. It's not like Caridad. What? Oh my God, las monjas, en blanca. I don't. Oh.
Okay.
This is a real suffering right here.
They'll edit that out because Mike will.
No, we'll leave it all in. We'll leave it all in, and I will appear like un cubano arrepentido because my Cuban history. I should absolutely know this. I've literally heard it across the decades. I just haven't heard it in a decade.
So that was the first group who Ozzie had to meet with, and they came to the ballpark and met with Ozzie because Ozzie was going to go on the apology tour and the explanation tour. But what I don't recall telling Ozzie, and what I know is true, is that we knew that day that he would have to be fired. Because I was told by my advisors that no matter what apology tour he goes on, it will never be enough to make up for what he said, and it will be a stain on the organization. So while we put him on the tour, while we had him meet with constituencies, it was never going to be enough to save his job.
Can you sort of take us through the initial response from Ozzie when you guys come in? And it was Time Magazine, right?
No, it was a much longer article. I don't remember what magazine. He said, "I respect Fidel Castro" was one of his quotes. I can't imitate Ozzie. I didn't say anything like that. I don't feel that. I know that Castro's a bad guy, but I have my right to say whatever. He was militant about his right of free speech and his right to say what he wanted, and him not thinking there are consequences. You want me to say I'm sorry? I'll say I'm sorry to anyone. You just give me a list of people. I'll call them. Like, he was insane about it, trying to protect his rights and And then his wife ended up being hugely helpful to us by explaining to him how bad it was. And he had 2 kids who we had to hire when he was hired to work for the team. They were helpful as well in this regard. And we started the process of trying to heal the market, which was so broken by things I had done over the past decade, and then Henry and Huizenga and everything else. But that was a bad day. That was a bad day, Le Batard, because that's when I knew for sure that our ballpark and our opening year was going to be a problem. Not that Hanley and Jose didn't get along, not that we didn't have a good enough team, not that we lost game 1 against the Cardinals with Josh Johnson pitching, none of that. Not that we couldn't sell out the Red Sox that season in a brand new ballpark, none of that. Not that we were over budget and underperforming. It was that everything we had planned for and dreamt about, and all the tampering we did to hire Ozzie Guillen. We traded the White Sox a player to get him, even when Jerry Reinsdorf wanted to get rid of him. Baseball, Bud Selig called me and said, don't hire Ozzie Guillen. It's going to be a mistake. Jerry Reinsdorf told me it's going to be a mistake, even though he wanted to not have him. And I had no choice. We brought in Ozzie, and it was a terrible, terrible thing that happened. And it set the franchise back. And frankly, it is why the franchise is where it is today, in large part because we screwed up 2012 so badly in every way on and off the field.
I have so many questions here. You just sort of skipped past something I had not heard before. Hanley Ramirez and Jose Reyes didn't get along?
No.
What was the backstory there?
We pretended they did on the franchise. We had them play video games together. I don't know if you ever saw the franchise, them playing video games in a bedroom.
You stored it? You staged it?
They wanted players doing stuff at spring training homes. Do you think did you go back and watch the franchise? Now, keep in mind what we did on the franchise. We did not do second takes of anything, which other teams do in Hard Knocks and in the franchise previous incarnations. We would say to the cameraman, just be around because shit just happens around us all the time. But when they're doing B-roll or where they're doing sort of a piece, they will not stage it. They'll say, hey, we want you guys to be in your spring training home and show us what it's like. They get together and play video games.
Did they get to, and that's fascinating that you would use a franchise as a propaganda arm, though it makes sense. Given that it's so
smart, Mike.
Yeah.
It was so smart. I know we've talked about it here, but what David was trying to do is so smart, and it ran against everything in baseball. Like, there's no place more resistant to that kind of smart.
And he was the only one that enjoyed it.
No, the whole thing's great, though, because he's understanding, hey, this is all entertainment. This will be fascinating to use our commodities to get our imagine what a great marketing tool to have an interesting show as you head into that season that makes the Marlins more popular.
All that. Yep. That's why we went over budget to bring in Reyes and Burley and Bell. That's why we agreed and wanted to do the franchise so badly. Everything was trying to make 2012 as an explosion. And by the way, what happens if we had won that year? Not the World Series price, but just 90 games and made it to the playoffs.
What happens if you simply don't sign Heath Bell and get someone who's not fat and is competent?
Heath Bell was so good the year before.
Yes. Yep.
And we were told that Heath Bell was a good guy. The problem is we were told that by agents who would say anything to get their players signed.
David.
And I had an inkling that we had a problem when Heath Bell didn't even want to see Miami or talk to any of us before he accepted the deal. I said, we may be overpaying him.
I can't believe the number of things that you guys did that year that were out of character, because you've got the Ozzie Guillen signing, and you just talked about we had to hire his 2 sons. Like, what are you agreeing to here? We had to hire his 2 sons. Start there, because you just said a number of things I want to ask you about.
Start where? Why? What are you talking about?
Why did you have to hire his 2 sons? Like, what?
Why did we hire Jeff Torborg's son to be our strength and conditioning coach when he took over for the fired Felipe Alou? Why did we have to hire his other son and do arbitration with his other son, Greg Torborg? Why did we have to bring in Ozzie's sons? Why do we have to have Joe Girardi bring in Bobby Meacham and Gary Tuck and all the other? Why? Because when you have no leverage, when you're told from above that this hiring is going to happen, and the people who you're hiring know that it's not a negotiation, you're being hired. When I walk into a negotiation with Ozzie Guillen and I say, hey, listen, let's talk about a 2 to 3 year deal. What you talking about? He said, it's a 4-year deal at $2.5 million a year. It's done. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I got a deal.
And so but wait, the two kids, the reason I objected that way, and you mentioned the Demon, and I know that you guys have covered the Demon, the wrestling character.
He wanted them brought in. He wanted them around. He wanted them to have a position. He wanted them to be in the game.
I know, but last week we talked to you about Ichiro and the translator, and you were saying to Ichiro, to bleeping Ichiro, hey, you pay for your translator. So if you're doing that to Ichiro, why are you letting...
Don't put me in the Kevin Mather category. What we said to his agent while we were negotiating is we think that we will pay the interpreter the per diem. We'll bring him on the road. He can be on the team plane. But is it really unreasonable for Ichiro to pay his salary? The agent said, yes, he won't do it. And we said, are you sure? Back and forth. And we paid the interpreter, who happens to be someone I still am in touch with. So don't say what you said before trying to lap me in with Mather. I'll do it myself if I want to be lapped in with him. I'm not going to let you lead me there.
The other thing that you guys did that was incredibly out of character that year is you guys never pay for relievers. You guys, in the history of this franchise, you just move through relievers. You go, it's Alfonseca 1 year. You guys don't give the big contract to a reliever. And you gave a bunch of long-term contracts in general. And on top of that, you chase Pujols all around the earth. He's making $30 million this year. This year, Pujols is still making $30 million.
His final season, he's walking away from the game next year.
So here's a funny Pujols story, is that when we were negotiating with him in 2012 in the winter meetings, which were in December of 2011, his agent was a guy named Dan Lozano. And we were told that he wants a long-term deal. We were told that he did not want to be in Miami because his wife didn't want him in Miami for all the distractions that exist here. And so we offered him an obscene amount of money, over $200 million. And that was enough to get it done, we thought. And we knew when we did the calculation for that deal that we didn't care about 2019, 20, or 21. It was so far in the future that it didn't matter. We knew he'd be unproductive. We knew that he was not the age that he said he was. We had all the information. And what's funny is now here we are in 2021. And you see how it played out for the Angels. And the Angels can say what they want, but they are despondent with the Pujols contract.
There's so many paths that we have to go down.
I want to ask him a million questions. Did you just report flatly that Pujols is older than he's always claimed to be?
We always alluded to that.
We assumed
there is not one person in baseball, not one executive, who believes that Albert Pujols is the age that he says he is. The amount of fraud that was going on in the Dominican back in the day, the changing of names, the changing of birthdays, it would blow your mind. It would literally blow your mind.
And you guys actually got burned by that with the Leo Nunez situation.
Burned.
Yeah, you've covered that real quick because I got to go back. I have it in my notes. What was the seeds of the bad relationship between Hanley and Jose Reyes? Was this just oil and water personalities didn't match, or did it harken back to position? Yeah,
it was my fault. So I was on a cultural exchange club trip. And that's a group of guys we go to a different sporting event every year since 2006, the same four guys, except we couldn't go last year because of COVID. And we were on a trip. I think it was the World Polo Championships in Buenos Aires, which I'm sure I said wrong. And I got a call from Hanley, because I wanted to tell him that we were looking at signing Reyes. And he said he wants to play shortstop. And I said, Hanley, are you going to be okay playing third in the new ballpark? You've got your long-term deal. Everything's great. And Hanley said to me, and I was at a dinner, he said, we're fine. I will be your third baseman. Let's go win. Okay, Samson? That's what he would call me. Call me Samson. We're okay, Samson. And I convinced myself that we were okay. And we never were okay. Just like we wouldn't let Hanley. Do you know that he didn't want to be in the same BP group as Giancarlo Stanton when Giancarlo Stanton came up to the big leagues?
Who would?
That's a great story, though. I imagine nobody wants to be in that.
He would demand to be in a different group because he did not want to be showed up by Stanton's BP.
That's such a good story. Can you give us a real glimpse at you in real time as you watch your owner buy Hanley Ramirez that piece of jewelry that he hung around his neck like a woman that he was wooing, like a wife on an anniversary? You made
3-4-2.
Yes, the batting average that led the league. I want to know where you were when it was bought. I want to know all the details about that necklace in terms of how you experienced it.
So I learned working for Jeffrey for 18 years that you have to, like the players, you have to give small victories. You have to choose what you are going to stand on principle, what you are going to resign over, and what you are not. Jeffrey wanted to do nice things for the players. I get it. He wanted the players to like him. I get it. He didn't want to ever be the bearer of bad news. I get it. It turns out Hanley loved that necklace. I thought it was gaudy and ridiculous. He loved it. And he did something for Anibal Sanchez after Sanchez's no-hitter. He made a big pendant for Anibal Sanchez. So he loved doing little things like that. He bought Jack McKeon a car. Like, he just does little things to make people believe what they want to believe about him.
You gave us a lot of great stuff this episode. You did something you rarely do, and we never discussed what's going to happen before. I wonder if it was born out of a text convo that you had with Dan. But you teased the story, the closest you ever came to actually quitting your job. I would love to get that story. Let's get it next week, because in this episode, we've already gone long, and Roy Bellamy's got some Panther talk to Sable at the end. Let's get your review, and I promise you we will discuss the closest you ever came to actually quitting your job next week. That'll be next week's episode. But let's please get to your review this week.
So as everybody knows from Nothing Personal, and thank you, by the way, for downloading, subscribing, and enjoying that podcast, I watch the movie every single day. And I watched, at the request of a listener of Nothing Personal, a 40-minute documentary called Longshot on Netflix. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is the most bizarre documentary about a guy charged with murder. And he's about to go to trial. He's about to get the death penalty, and he claims he didn't do it. And some lawyer said, you know what, I'll take the case because I believe your voice sounds good. His claim was, his alibi is he was at a Dodgers game. So he searched all the cameras trying to find the guy at the Dodger game. And the only reason he was found at the Dodger game is Curb Your Enthusiasm was filming the exact day that this guy was claiming to have not committed a murder. And they chose to shoot the film exactly where the episode, exactly where this guy was sitting.
That is great.
It is the longest of shots. It's a great 40-minute documentary. It is worth your time because it is scary. It is scary how, if you are a person of color, where you can be accused of something from a lineup that's fixed, and you could go to jail or be killed. And this is not being liberal or being conservative. It is outright scary when your only alibi is a relative who is incentivized to lie for you, and you manage to get out of your, basically, you're being accused of murder because you were with Larry David on the Curb Your Enthusiasm set, and the set was a bunch of unknowing fans at a Dodgers game.
It's a great story. It really is. David, we will talk to you again next week. Also put on the list, Mike, because I want to get David's second-place finisher to Scott Boras. He mentioned Dan Lozano, Albert Pujols' agent, and I just sort of had like something like a cold wind blow through me because the agent business is gross, and I want to get his second grossest agent. I want to know who classifies. Dave, that was really strong. Thank you, buddy.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
My name is Roy Bellamy. I'm joined by David Dwork of Local 10. He covers the Florida Panthers here locally. And we are a quarter into the NHL season with the Panthers leading the division as of February 22nd following their win versus the Dallas Stars. Now, this has been a 56-game shortened season, so it's been very weird. The Panthers are in a new division possibly just for this year because all the Canadian teams are unable to travel outside of the country due to COVID. So it's going to be a very interesting process when it comes to figuring out who's going to make the playoffs. That's going to be very interesting. As I said, the Florida Panthers are in first place currently as of February 22nd following a win versus Dallas in the Discover Card Central Division. So let's turn to David here. How are the Panthers doing after a quarter of the way in?
Pretty awesome. I mean, even the most optimistic outlook wouldn't have had them at, 12-3-2. So leading the temporary Central Division on top of Tampa, on top of Carolina, Columbus. It's great. And I'm sure Panther fans who've been, long loyal to this team are just, head over heels happy right now. And for me, I'm excited just because it looks like it's sustainable. It doesn't look like it's just a flash in the pan or a hot streak. Like, it looks like they're for real. So yeah, it's really exciting right now, Roy.
Well, Bill Zito's in his first year as Panthers general manager. He really seems to have made a major difference in the roster. Why don't you go over some of the moves that the Panthers made in the offseason, how these changes have really affected the Panthers on ice performance?
He's brought in, first off, the main two guys that I always think of that he brought in are Patrick Hornqvist and Radko Gudas. Hornqvist is a extremely feisty forward that's known for his just kind of sandpaper game. And this is all on top of the fact that he's been an amazingly consistent scorer throughout his career. And he's played on teams with guys like Crosby and Malkin, and he's still been able to maintain that scoring very consistently. He's been in the league, I think, 13 years. He comes to the Panthers. He adds that veteran element. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's performing these 15 points through 17 games. I think he's at 8 goals. Adding another element to their power play. So all these things in one little package. And then Radko Gudas, the defenseman I mentioned, he adds an element of grit to the Panthers that they haven't had since maybe the days of Eric Branson being around, where you are fearing this guy. You are always keeping an eye on him when he's on the ice. And he's another guy that's been around the block. He's a veteran. He knows how to win. He's been on winning teams before. And then just looking at the other guys that Zito brought in, whether you're talking about a Verhaeghe or a Wenberg or a Hinostroza or a Nutrivara, professional guys. These are all guys that keep their head down, focus on winning. That's why I'm here today. I'm here to win. I'm here to be better today than I was yesterday. Just a lot of very professional players that he's brought in. And you're seeing how that's translated on the ice when they're so consistent, right? They're coming to work every day and doing their job. Nobody's playing head over heels, amazing, having ridiculous seasons. Everybody's just doing what they're supposed to do, right? They're being consistent. And I think, as you said, Bill Zito, first-year GM, you got to give him so much credit for this.
Well, you mentioned Verhaeghe, you mentioned Hornqvist, the first line with Barkov, Duclair, and Verhaeghe, and the second line with Huberdeau and Wenberg and Hornqvist have done very well. What about the bottom 6 forwards? Panthers' depth scoring, how's that been for them this season?
It's coming on of late. It's nice that the depth you talk about, because guys that are in the bottom 6, like you think about like a Frank Vetrano or perhaps a Brett Connolly, these are guys that were rotating in and out of the top 6 last year, and now they're just steady bottom 6 guys that are producing. The third line centered by Eetu Luosterainen, who was brought over in the Trocheck trade from last year with Carolina, he's been a really nice find because of his two-way game and his ability to play on that third line with really, the right wing spot has been moved around. You've seen Owen Tippett there. You've seen Brett Connolly move up there. Frank Vetrano's been pretty consistent on that line. Vetrano's having a great year, Roy. I'm sure you've noticed as well. He was known as a guy that was a speedy scoring type player. This year, his 200-foot game has gone to another level. He's playing great back checking in his own zone. He's on the PK a little bit this year. So just a continuing of a maturation process with Vetrano. And then that fourth line, amazingly consistent. Mainly it's been Noel Acciari. He's been injured for the last week or so, but even without Noel Acciari centering it with Juho Lammikko out there, you've got Ryan Lomberg, who's been pretty solid, big guy that can move well. On the other side, Hinostroza's there because you had Connolly moving up to the line, Tippett coming out. So there's been a lot of movement in that bottom 6, but that kind of goes to your point, the depth. That's why they've been able to maintain, is because they can move guys in and out here or there, and the team's not really suffering any. Coach Q often attributes that to the competition level at the bottom of the lineup. Guys are busting their ass in practice trying to get that game time, so it's really translating to better practices, to better games, to more consistent play. So, across the board, the depth has been huge this year.
And that's pretty good because the fourth line isn't just for checking right now. They're actually going out there and providing a little bit of offense for the team. That's pretty good. Defensively, Keith Yandel came into the season possibly not being a Florida Panther. There was talk of him being shipped, and he's come in. He's got 2 goals. He's got 10 assists. He's still giving up bad turnovers, but he's been there providing a little bit of offense. But is there potentially still talk of him being moved, or is he going to stay for the season?
I think that chatter has really died down since the beginning of the year when he wasn't really skating with the top unit. So there was talk about him possibly being scratched, the Iron Man streak ending, which then opened up trade speculation. And why are you scratching a guy that makes this much money? It may have all been a whole lot about nothing, because he's played the entire season as he normally would. He's on the top power play, maybe not seeing the same amount of minutes that he has in past years because they don't need him in as high of a role defensively, not on special teams. And it also helps that Florida's been playing with the lead a lot more. So when you're protecting leads, you don't need to have Yandel out there trying to score for you. You can have your more defensive defenseman out there later in the game. So it all kind of ties into that. But at the end of the day, Keith Yandel is very good at doing what he's good at, which is being an offensive defenseman. And with that, you're going to take some of those defensive deficiencies. That's what everybody's known about Yandel throughout his career. That's what they knew about Yandel when they signed him. And that's what, Coach Q and Bill Zito know about him now. So with Yandel, I mean, as you said, what has he got, like 12 points already in 17 games? One of the top scoring defensemen in the league while still not getting a ton of minutes. And his ability on the power play is second to none. He can quarterback a power play better than almost any defenseman in the league. Yeah, his contract is kind of heavy, but like you said, you get what you pay for. And right now, they're winning. They're scoring a lot of goals. Their power play is, I believe it's in the top 5 in the entire league right now, and he's a big part of that.
Speaking getting what you pay for, let's talk about the Panthers goaltender situation. Sergei Bobrovsky is making $10 million a year.
Very subtle segue there.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty heavy-handed, just like that. That was a heavy hand right there. $10 million per year. Chris Driedger, the backup goaltender, has been playing better than Sergei Bobrovsky. They've had a strategy on playing the goaltenders. It's been 2-on, 1-off. For Bobrovsky early in the season. That seems to have changed now because of the way Driedger has been playing. So what's going on with the Panthers goaltending situation? And will Bob live up to that $10 million a year contract before it runs out?
That's a great question, and we'll see how that works. As of now, it's not looking. Again, it's early, so let's not count our chickens before they hatch. But I mean, right now, Chris Driedger is playing better hockey. He's been the Panthers' better goalie, and he's seen the majority of the starts right now. Coach Quenneville is never going to come out and say there's a goalie controversy. He's never going to throw one of his players under the bus. It's just not the kind of guy that he is. But at the end of the day, the better playing goalie is going to play more, and that's what we're seeing right now with Driedger. He started, I think, whatever it is, 3 or 4 out of 5, and he's starting the next game. But when you talk about the 2-on, 1-off thing, that's more because of the schedule being the way it is, where there's been a lot of back-to-backs and the games are really starting to constrict with the time. So that's why whichever goalie's playing better, odds are they're both going to be needed. So even if Bob is struggling, he's still probably going to get at least 1 or 2 starts a week, assuming they both continue on this path that they're on right now. Driedger right now is the starter. Bottom line, if he's going to keep playing the way he's playing, he's going to keep getting the majority of the starts, and that's just the way it's going to be. The Panthers are winning. They're one of the best teams in the league, and Driedger has been playing like one of the best goalies in the league. Amazingly consistent. The team plays well in front of him, and that's just going to continue. They're going to keep giving Bob chances, and, like I said, because of the schedule, he's going to keep getting his chances. And if he starts to reach that level where he's, living up to that contract, all the better reason for the Panthers to have that kind of a goalie problem, to where you got 2 goalies playing great, and there's no wrong answer with which one you start. But right now, one of them's playing better than the other. That one's playing more, and we'll just see how it goes. When the playoffs start, and when it's one goalie, if the playoffs started tomorrow, it would be Driedger.
Aleksander Barkov, basically every season he's been a Selke Trophy candidate as best two-way forward. He has very good defensive skills. You think he's going to actually win the actual trophy this year?
I think a lot of that kind of goes hand in hand with how the team is doing, and being that the Panthers are one of the better teams in the league right now, they're going to get a lot more eyeballs on them as the year progresses. So there's a chance, yeah. And Barkov is playing spectacularly this season. He's looking maybe like better than ever. You could say that about Barkey this year. Last year, it was kind of known but not known that he was playing hurt most of the season, and he did have a bit of a down year. Even though he still produced, just maybe not at the level that we were expecting of Barkov. He's still in his mid-20s. These guys are still getting better. So this year, he's really kind of appeared to take that next step. He's looking just amazing. Like when you watch this guy move through the neutral zone, it's like he can reach blue line to blue line. He's got such ridiculous reach and such a long stride. And you add to that the confidence that he's having, the kind of alpha mindset that he seems to have this year of shooting more than we've ever seen him. I mean, when he shot the puck at the empty net last night against the Stars, I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, Barkov actually shot at an empty net. He wasn't looking for someone to pass it to. No, he got it on his backhand. His backhand, Roy.
His backhand.
Still ripped it into the empty net. So we're seeing a new Barkov this year, and if he puts up even better offensive numbers, which right now that's where he's trending. And he continues to be the defensive, amazing player that he is defensively. On a line, by the way, with a guy, Carter Verhaeghe, who I am so impressed with this guy defensively. This guy is like the Energizer Bunny on the ice. You watch him back check, you watch him reading plays in the defensive zone. It's really impressive. So you put these guys in a line together with another speedster and Anthony Duclair. It's been awesome to watch. And yeah, Barkov for Selke, I'm on board. The way things are going, I mean, Barkov or Huberdeau for Hart Trophy, Chris Driedger for Vezina, Coach Steve for Jack Adams, Phil Zito for whatever the GM of the Year award is. I mean, let's do it. Let's just make it a smorgasbord.
Wow. The Hart Trophy, the Ted Lindsay Trophy, that's going to be an interesting race between him and Austin Matthews. Huberdeau and Austin Matthews. That's really going to be interesting.
Well,
I don't know if he's going to win.
Florida guy's never going to have a chance against a guy playing for a Canadian team.
No.
Not yet anyway.
And not the best team in the league, Canadian team with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know. I don't know. So what's been the biggest surprise of the season? You mentioned Verhaeghe's defensive skills. I don't think anybody before the Panthers actually signed Verhaeghe thought that he was going to break out offensively like that. So what do you think the biggest surprise has been this season for Florida?
I think maybe how good Carter Verhaeghe is across the board, not just because we knew he could score. He led the AHL in scoring 2 years ago, so we knew that he had that kind of an ability. I had no idea what a great, just all-around player he was, how fast he was. Like his first step, I mean, it's like Dwayne Wade on skates. His first step is so good. So that was kind of surprising. You know, when you get a guy like that for 2 years, $2 million, and then have him under team control after that, I mean, when are they building Bill Zito a statue outside the BB&T Center? Their defensive depth, I mean, honestly, I've been surprised. Like they signed, they picked up the two guys off waivers and Gustav Forsling and Noah Juleson. And you're like, oh my God, they picked them off waivers, so they got to be on the roster all year. And they already had a pretty steady, deep, stable and defenseman, and it's working. It's working really well. I'm surprised with how good Radko Gudas has been, how consistent. I didn't realize how good of a defender he was. He came in with this reputation as a kind of an ass kicker that might do something dumb every once in a while. And honestly, he was a player who I hated. Like, I could not stand Radko Gudas for years, whether it was in Tampa, in Washington, in Philly. Just did not like him. As soon as I saw that we signed him, I jumped out of my chair. I was so happy. Because
we've been missing that sort of toughness for a long time.
Everything that I hate about him is everything that the Panthers needed. And when you get all of that, and then we haven't gotten like the negative aspect of it, he hasn't done any. He hasn't taken any big penalties. He hasn't put his team in a bad spot. It's just been awesome. So between Verhaeghe's just surprise, amazing 200-foot game, and Gudas is just all around smart play defensively. That's probably my two biggest surprises.
Let's take a look at the prospects that we have so far, not only in the AHL but in the junior leagues. What prospects do you see have a chance of making the big club coming up soon?
Well, talking about the AHL guys first, Alexi Heponiemi did get a couple of games in before going back down and looked pretty solid, so you would think that he's got a role at some point. Sarah Noel is somebody who I'm definitely keeping an eye on. This kid's like 6'5". He's a huge power forward, but he can skate really well. Didn't see a whole lot of him during training camp, but he's skating in his first pro season. He was great in juniors in Ontario, and I'm really excited to kind of see him develop and come along as well. Chase Pristy, the defenseman, Riley Stillman, both guys. Riley Stillman just got called back up to the taxi squad, but Stillman looked really good during training camp, so I was a little surprised to see him get sent down. So I'd like to see how that continues. And Chase Prisky, the other guy who we got in the Vincent Trocheck trade last year, along with Luosterainen, who I mentioned earlier, just another solid defenseman. So the Panthers have got some depth in that department. Beyond the AHL, there's the guy who we all talk about, Spencer Knight, the goalie, who's having another great year with Boston College. You would think that if he doesn't go pro after this year and he stays another year in Boston, either way, as soon as he goes pro, he's going to become the Panthers' AHL starting goalie probably for a season. And then, we'll see what happens. It's kind of like when you look at the Panthers goaltending from the top down, you got Bob, who's not going anywhere for a while because of his contract. Driedger, who's probably not going to be here after this year because he's an unrestricted free agent playing really well. He's going to have money thrown at him that the Panthers aren't going to match. Mm-hmm. Montembeault would probably be your backup next year because he's still going to be relatively inexpensive and hopefully playing at a level, coming up the way that the Driedger did for them. I'm sure that's what they're hoping. And then after that would be Spencer Knight. So depending on how it shakes out year after year, that's your goalie of the future, Roy. And I mean, we've talked about it before. We've talked about watching Carter Hart and thinking, this is what we could be seeing, or the young Russian goaltenders in the league, the Sorokins and the Shesterkins coming up. So it's quite exciting to have that much talent coming up in the Panthers' lower ranks. But particularly when you have a goalie like that, who's considered one of the top 2 or 3 prospects in the world, I mean, you got to love that.
Well, I'm with David Dwork here from Local 10. He covers the Florida Panthers here in South Florida. Now, the NHL, because of COVID, has reformatted each division. All the Canadian teams are playing in Canada because they can't leave their country. So they got their own division. So the playoff format is confusing. There's no conferences. I don't even know if there's going to be a Prince Wells Trophy or a Campbell Bowl this year. I don't know.
That's a good question, actually. I mean, you would assume that the 2 finalists would get the 2 trophies, but which gets which?
That's a good question.
Eastern Conference teams in the finals or Western Conference teams in the finals?
That's a good question. And what leads to the third round is what? Like I don't know who's playing who.
Okay.
Outside of the division, once we get to the second round, I heard it was going to be reseeded.
Yes.
And then and then the 2 divisions, I guess, play each other after that.
Well, yeah, the divisions would play the first 2 rounds in your division. So by the time we get out of the division, there's only going to be 4 teams left. There's going to be the 4 division playoff winners or whatever. So at that point, they would reseed based on the regular season. So, if you're amazing in the regular season, you make it out, then you'll be the top seed in that final 4. And then probably be more like March Madness Final Four, where they, once they get reseeded, that's really going to be the bracket. Your question is actually really good. It's really kind of working my brain right now. Do they hand those trophies out this year? How do they, and just think about how weird would it be if you get like Boston and Montreal in the finals, which you absolutely could.
Boston and Montreal in the Cup final hasn't happened in 60 years.
The original 6 days, right?
Yeah, like that hasn't happened in a long time. That would be exciting. That would be an interesting matchup there too.
Well, that's kind of the cool aspect of the way the league is everything this year is just going to be weird. Everything's going to be different. Kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. Everybody just kind of knows that they're in it for whatever happens. Like they're in it for a season. They're going to play hockey. They're getting their paychecks. They're able to continue their careers, and whatever happens. Do we care that much? Like the Panthers, it's one of the craziest seasons we've ever had, but the Panthers are on top of the mountain right now. The only team in the league, I think, with better record than the Panthers is Toronto, who you mentioned, the best team in the league. So do we care how crazy this season is? Do we give a crap about taxi squads and shortened schedules and 3s in a row? No. Those to be used as excuses if teams aren't doing well, but the team's doing well, so who cares? Like, we've been following this team for so long to this point. Like, let's just enjoy it.
I mean, you're right. Everybody's playing hockey. Everybody's getting paychecks. It's just everything around them doesn't make any sense. Nothing.
Well, that's true for most of us. It's not just the hockey guys. We're wearing masks out every day. We're having groceries delivered. I mean, for the majority of people, it's been a crazy year. But most people still want to go to work every day. They got families to support. Hockey players are no different.
Right. You just adjust and you move on.
Yeah, you do it. At the end of the day, they're professionals just like we're professionals. Under normal circumstances, you and I would be sitting across from each other right now, cheering Scotch glasses instead of looking at each other through our Zoom computer screens. We adjust. We're professionals. It's what we do. And that's what everyone else is doing. I'm just grateful that we've got a hockey season and we've got our sports seasons. We got to see a World Series. We got to see a Super Bowl. I mean, there was a point last summer where we didn't have anything and we were all watching like Japanese baseball because it was the only sports on TV. So yeah. I'm very appreciative of what we have right now.
So how far do you think the Panthers will make here in the playoffs? It seems like, as you said, it's sustainable. And it's just been a surprising season. I thought that Chicago was going to be right there with Detroit. Looking at draft picks, that's not been the case. I thought Tampa was going to run away with everything. That hasn't been the case. I didn't even think about Toronto, and they're the best team in the league. And I wasn't even looking at the West teams. I was just thinking that maybe Colorado was going to make some noise there. So the Panthers, I mean, this has been a surprising season for everybody. And it looks like the Panthers might go further than the Marlins did during their season. So how far do you think the Panthers are going to end up going?
No, I mean, like we said, it looks sustainable. So when the season started, maybe the first week or two, you're thinking, wow, is this real? Are they going to be a playoff team? And now here we are a few weeks later, and it's not, are they going to be a playoff team? It's, are they going to win this division? That's the question now. Like, as well as they're playing, and they proved it against Tampa 3 times, Carolina. They're playing last year's Stanley Cup finalists in Dallas very well. So it's not a question of, are they going to make the playoffs? At this point, if they don't make the playoffs, it's a huge, huge problem because of how good we can see them be on a week-to-week basis. So getting to the playoffs, now it becomes uncharted territory for the Panthers because it's not just trying to get in. Now there's expectations. Not winning a playoff round is a big issue, especially if they're going to be one of the top-ranked teams in the division playing a lesser team. I mean, we don't know how it's going to shake out. Right now, it looks like, the Panthers, Tampa, and Carolina are kind of battling for those top spots. And while that might change, because you would think maybe a Columbus team or Chicago, who's surprisingly playing very well, are going to be competing for those that last playoff spot. But yeah, I mean, if the Panthers are healthy going into the playoffs, they are built for a long playoff run. They've got scoring across the board, all 4 lines. They can roll them. They're tough. They're gritty. They've got guys that have won. They've got a lot of guys that have won. They've got one of the best clutch head coaches we've seen in the last 3 decades. Goaltending, I guess, would be a question because Drieder's never been there before. And Bob, I'm expecting probably Drieder to be the starter. We've seen Bob now for a season and almost a season and a third. Mm-hmm. And is he going to turn around? Maybe. It doesn't look like it's there right now. Something is off. He's not the guy he was when he won 2 Vezina trophies and was putting up ridiculous numbers in Columbus. So right now I'm kind of thinking Drieder's going to be the guy. Is he going to be the guy to be in the playoffs? He could be. Mentally, he seems really strong. He's so chill. He's very honest when speaking to the media. Like, it doesn't seem like anything bothers him that much. And he just kind of goes through his progressions. He knows what his job is. When something goes wrong, he just breaks it down with the goalie coaches. He's just a very even keel goaltender, which maybe goalies are a little eccentric at times. But, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if they're healthy and they're rolling into the playoffs like this, I'm almost a little frightened with what the expectations could be because we haven't seen that. 96, 97, after they went to the finals, was maybe the only time that there was any grand expectations surrounding the Panthers.
Right.
So, yeah, 100% uncharted territory. But the way that they are looking right now and the way that they've looked for, whatever the season has been going on, 5-6 weeks, let's roll, man. I'm ready to see how far it goes. They haven't won a playoff round in 20 some odd years already, Let's do it.
Well, Bob missed training camp. I don't know if it was COVID. I don't know what happened there. If it was COVID, is that a major reason for his play so far this season?
We don't know for sure whether it was or it wasn't COVID. He kind of alluded sort of to it, but again, like without anybody saying for sure, I certainly don't want to, say that it was or it wasn't. It doesn't seem like whatever kept him out during training camp has hindered him. With COVID type of situations, you wonder if it's like a respiratory thing, but it just seems like he's picked up where he left off last season. Like, that's basically what I'm seeing. And he's technically there. He works his butt off. He's one of the first guys on the ice. He's always putting in extra work with the goalie coach, Rob Tallis. There's just something off. And I don't think whatever kept him out of training camp has anything to do with it. I think it's something that maybe was cropping up towards the end of his time in Columbus, although when his time ended in Columbus, he had that great playoff run where they beat Tampa and they made it to the second round and Bob was playing amazing. So did something happen on the flight from Ohio to Florida maybe? I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but Bob, his rebound control lately hasn't been all that great. Normally you would just redirect that towards the corner or you'll be able to freeze the puck.
Yep.
That hasn't been great. He's overplayed some shots that once it does lead to a rebound that's not redirected to the corner or frozen, he can't get back in time. So I don't know what it is. Like,
I've wondered if it's something with his footwork. Like, as I've watched him this year, he kind of, if you watch Driedger, he's quick, precise movements, just snapping his skates, tick, 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 cutting through. With Bob, it's, for lack of a better term, kind of wishy-washy. A lot of hip movement. His knees are moving a bit more, and it just doesn't, it looks like there's something a little off. He's making great saves. He's getting great pushes with his legs. I mean, as you mentioned, sometimes he over pushes, but he's not a huge goaltender, so that's a little, fairly common among smaller guys. You think of, I mean, not to get sidetracked, but like a guy like Jonathan Quick, not that big, but amazing control. Mm-hmm. Bob has been that way before. Now it's maybe a little bit more loosey-goosey, but at the end of the day, the issue hasn't really been so much with his legs and his knees as it is just giving up cheap goals. Now, whether that's a product of the funky movements or not, that's kind of what I'm maybe thinking as I watch him. But the rebound control is just, it's tough because when you're getting a rebound, the shot's coming at you 70, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. So you don't really have much time. It's all about being in position before the puck is shot. So that way, all you have to do is make one or two quick little movements. You drop down into your butterfly, you get your hands up, and the puck goes where you tell it to. When you watch Chris Driedger, pucks are going in the corner, pucks off his stick into the netting, or he just keeps it all in his belly. With Bob, there's so much extra movement that the puck is just kind of bouncing all over the place. It doesn't have anywhere to settle into him. It's not as big of a deal as it was last year, particularly because the defense is so much better at cleaning things up in between the circles this year. Last year was kind of a free-for-all in front of the Panthers net. So, yeah, I can't put my finger on what the issue is with Bob, and I'm guessing they're having a hard time doing it on the Panthers end too because the issues have not been resolved yet.
It seems like the Panthers have done a better job cleaning up quality shot opportunities from face-off circle to face-off circle and near the crease area, as opposed to last season, which basically left Bob out to dry. And I think they've done a better job doing that as well. As far as the special teams is concerned, how do you think the Panthers are doing on the power play and the penalty kill?
Power play, one of the best in the league. Power play has been spectacular. I was curious how it was going to work this year because you lose two of your top power play guys from the last couple of years in Mike Hoffman and Evgeny Dadonov. And then you start a new power play with several new players, including a two defensive format instead of the last few years when they've been running four forwards. So there was a lot of changes. And so obviously it's going to raise a lot of questions. And it's worked tremendously. Aaron Ekblad as a second defenseman, as I put up my air quotes, he's not really playing a defenseman role on that power play. He's moving all over the ice. He's moving from the right side to the left side. We've seen him score a couple of power play goals from the left side, even though he's probably spent 90% of his power play time on the right side, which just kind of shows the flexibility this group has. And we talked about Patrick Hornquist earlier. His power play presence in front of that net, whether it's screening the goalies or getting goals himself, has been huge as well. So, yeah, they're not missing Mike Hoffman in that shot anymore. So the power play has been tremendous. The penalty kill, it's a work in progress, but when you've got so many great defensive players, forward-wise, when you've got your Barkovs and your Charis and your Lamikos, Alex Wenberg, Frank Vetrano has been playing very well, adding a little bit more to the penalty kill. And on top of that, you've got great defensemen already that have been playing it. The penalty kill should be okay. It's never easy because you're always going against the best players on the other team when you're defending a power play. I think as long as the Panthers power play can continue to carry them offensively, it's going to be fun because you need good special teams to succeed in this league. And if your penalty kill is, average, middle of the road, and your power play is top 5, it'll be okay.
So Yandel and Ekblad on the same power play line?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yandel and Ekblad have both been out there on power play 1 this year. But while Yandel is doing the more traditional defenseman quarterbacking role, Ekblad has been so mobile and so fluid on the power play that you won't really think of him as a defenseman. And Ekblad is so good in his offensive abilities that you're not really missing anything. Having him on that power play also allows you to have one of your top forwards that would have been on power play 1. Now he can go to power play 2 and make that unit that much better. So, there's a lot of reasons why I could see why they went this route. And the fact that it's working, all the better.
All right, we're going to end our conversation on this. We are a quarter of the way into the season. Stanley Cup final matchup. Who do you got and who's winning?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. Honestly, I would love to see Toronto just because they're playing really well right now. That city is eat, sleep, breathe hockey. I think coming out of that North Division, whether it's Toronto or Edmonton, who they can score like the Dickens, and now they're getting better goal. Mike Smith, whether that's sustainable as their goaltender, I don't know. But one of those two teams I would suspect come out of the North and probably make it to the final. God, looking across the board, I mean, you got to look at Vegas as a potential cup contender. They're deep, and they've got great goaltending, two great goaltenders, assuming they hang on to Fleury. And in Florida's division, I mean, obviously you look at Tampa. Panthers are right there. And I'm naming, like, you asked me for finals teams, and I'm naming like 6 teams, so I apologize for that.
Well, the playoffs is the playoffs is going to be a crapshoot as far as who's playing who anyway. So I guess this works out better.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, it's going to be a playoff year unlike anything. And look, we had fun last year with the bubble and the play-in and all that. And I mean, it was fun having like 5 or 6 hockey games on TV every day or whatever it was. So, it's going to be a fun experience. But God, I don't want to not answer your question. So I'm going to say Toronto as one team and Tampa. Tampa. I just can't get past Andrei Vasilevsky. And Tampa's already good now. And then they're going to get Kucherov back for the playoffs. I'd love to see Florida take him down. Maybe they will. Certainly possible. But I'm not picking against Stamkos, Kucherov, Cirelli, Killorn, Hedman. Vasilevsky is just like a robo goalie.
Yeah.
So that's my pick. I got it. Toronto, Tampa.
All right. David Dwork, Local 10. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Roy. I'll see you in the press box.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz Podcast.
We have not had enough of Miami Heat homer Mike Ryan gloating and swaggering because his team is healthy, even though they're kind of exactly the same as Boston and Toronto. And it appears that the Nets and the Sixers are better, and it appears that the Milwaukee Bucks might be better as well. I feel like we all know that the Heat and the Celtics and the Raptors are a bit the same, but now the Heat are healthy. They beat the Raptors, and I want to get into that, even though I know many of you do not like Mike Ryan's homer guy, Jimmy Butler. I underestimated Jimmy Butler, Stugotz. He is more important than I thought he was. Never mind the silly discussions we have all the time in sports about, is this guy good enough to be the best player on a championship team? Jimmy Butler pretty clearly last year was damn near close enough to that, and I didn't think he was that. But evidently having him around makes a bit of a difference. And while people made him a winner before he had won, he's kind of an important player offensively, defensively. He hit some threes last night, and when he is healthy and they are healthy, they have been a formidable team. But the reason I can't start there is because I'm increasingly frustrated by my inability on this show for 3 days now to get going a greatest car chase scene in the movies conversation. I have tried to do this for 3 straight shows, and the reason that I'm doing it today is because so many of you young people, ignorant, flouting your ignorance, just screamed at me about Ronin. Really, Dan? A 20-year-old movie? And then people get in with Blues Brothers and Bullet, and Old Man Roy is getting in there. Yeah. Roy, what was yours? I think you had the oldest one. Was it from Bullet, or was it before Bullet, after Bullet?
French Connection, right?
It was the French Connection and the Blues Brothers and Bullet.
Okay, well, Bullet, just so that you know, I saw it on the screen the other day, and I was hypnotized with a giant smile on my face because the scene was, and this is how much America's changed, more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes of people just driving around crashing cars in 1968.
That's nothing. 10 minutes.
Well, this is what I was going to say, though. Billy, thank you. Because what I was going to say is we've replaced the car chase scene with just the Fast and the Furious franchise. We've just put them all in one movie.
We've made them movies.
10 years.
Yeah.
That's what's happened, Billy. I could not engage you in the car chase scene on anything, and I thought it would be your wheelhouse because of Fast and the Furious. I thought you were going to come in and say, Fast and the Furious, it's just all one car chase scene.
Yeah, I said 10 years. I was wrong. It's over 20 years now, I think, of Fast and Furious action. But you know what, Dan? The Fast and the Furious isn't just car chases, all right? That's taking away from some story arc. That's taking away from all kinds of feelings, passions, stories between family members, stories between brothers. You know, if you ask me one thing, what's the Fast and the Furious about? Car chases is probably 10th on the list of things I would say of what it's about. You know what it's about? Family. That's what it's about.
That's beautiful, Billy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
I've steered away from this discussion. It's not been a conversation for Mike Ryan, just because I know this game. I've played it all my life. Is no answer is good enough for Dan. And I don't like playing that game, Dan, but I will say, if we're highlighting car chases or just chases in general, there has been a grand omission, and Billy, you're going to like this. We have not spoken about the one in Fast and Furious 6. Now, you mentioned the Fast 5 safe that was extracted from the bank and on the highway and all that, but the tarmac scene in Fast and Furious 6, where they're on a plane that's on a tarmac getting ready to take off for 13 minutes, making, and people have done the math on this, the runway 26 miles long.
It was only 13 minutes?
Only 13 minutes.
Now, the largest runway in the world, and I cannot believe
So, a marathon, the length of this runway, was somebody did the math.
Yes, someone did the math at the speed
Marathon,
that the
not a sprint.
Yeah, the speed that the airplane was going at, and the length of the actual scene suggests that the tarmac is 26 miles long. The longest runway in the world, and I can't believe there's one this long, is 18 miles. So, in the Fast and Furious universe, it's an alternate universe that has a runway that is long enough for this one chase scene. Now, this is on a plane, and there are some cars involved that are chasing said plane, but this should be at least highlighted in this discussion.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, please. Fast and the Furious 6, is it a plane chase scene or is it a car chase scene?
That runway Mike is talking about, of course, is the Quamdo Bamda Airport, and it is that long because of altitude reasons, just so we're clear.
I love that you have that knowledge in your head just stored there in a compartment. I am not a human being who is going to stand accused quietly like you did of simply saying to my face, no answer is going to be good enough. When all I was saying is, don't make fun of me because of Ronin. I'm allowed to go 20 years in the past to get a car chase scene if you guys are going to do Bullet and Blues Brothers and French Connection. And you're going to get mad at me when we don't mention, Bad Boys. Bad Boys was right here in Miami. And you got mad at me, and I feel like Bad Boys was right around the era of Ronin. Why does Bad Boys get grandfathered in, and you guys yell at me like I'm your grandfather over Ronin? So anyways, I've been defensive about this, stewing on it for a couple of days.
You don't sound like it.
And I'm angry at all of you because of it. Stugotz, I figured that you got angry the other day because J.J. Watt at 2 a.m. Tweeted scary hours while, walking onto a football field somewhere where he had to show everybody. He couldn't just work out quietly and privately at 2 a.m. Right. He had to show everybody, look, this is when I work out. This is who I am. I'm guy who runs on AstroTurf field at 1:45 in the morning.
And I'm guy who's going to show you that I'm running on the AstroTurf field at 1:45 in the morning because I'm incapable of doing anything without a camera in front of my face. I'm tired of J.J.
Guillermo,
Watt.
put it on the poll, please. Should J.J. Watt play games with Captain America's shield on his right arm? Yes or no? Because I believe that Stugotz is right when he says that J.J. Watt is somebody who needs to play for Army.
It'd be so great if he went back to school and played for Army.
It would be. It would be wonderful. I love that J.J. Watt, we've all lived long enough to see J.J. Watt go from what he was. I mean, he told such charming stories about it being a pizza delivery guy at Wisconsin to becoming a true American hero, just built like a superhero and a defensive player of the year. And somehow, for some reason, this incurred Stugotz's every wrath from every angle, even though this guy is like the vision of the mythological athlete from the past. He should wear Thorpe on the back of his jersey just to be a guy from another time, and Stugotz has hated him. And I think it was the log cabin. I think it was the fake log cabin with an elevator that finally made Stugotz call somebody else a fraud.
I love what J.J. Watt is doing on social media, dropping all sorts of hints. Mina Kimes is like some forensic scientist trying to crack the codes. He's going to the Browns.
Yeah. Mike has wanted him. Green Bay wants to get into that game.
Buffalo,
the Steelers.
I've seen a lot of people. Is that First Energy? People saying making a joke about the watt being a unit of measurement for energy, that the pieces fit. And Mike Ryan is dreaming now. Are we going to have a situation in this studio where Stugotz is killing J.J. Watt while Mike Ryan is loving J.J. Watt?
I've always loved J.J. Watt, Dan. It's always made me uncomfortable. J.J. Watt's one of my favorite players in the league. Not to forget, if you can, what an amazing philanthropist he is. Just on the field, the dimensions of this guy's body, the fact that he always makes impact plays at that position. Can you imagine that guy next to Myles Garrett? Can you imagine it?
As we explored last week, he is really good at almost sacking the quarterback. The best in the league,
hey guys,
perhaps.
When you look at the best chase scenes in movies, I got to think, honestly, you go back to Bullitt and Steve McQueen. There's something iconic about Bullitt. You look at other films like Ronin, perhaps, with Robert Deniro. The French Connection, Billy Friedkin. Tell me that's not huge in South Beach with the Clevelander. If I put on a showing of The French Connection right now, everyone's getting excited about Gene Hackman as Popeye Doyle. That would be something for the ages, I think.
Hold on. Mike, we're on a pirate ship. We're at sea. There are no rules or nobody's allowed. What the hell?
Our phones aren't even working.
Nothing works here.
Zoom.
The televisions don't work here. The air conditioning, the tiny fridge in here. ESPN turned that off too.
Oh, really?
How is it that this guy breaches security no matter where it is we're talking? Even though we don't have security, even though I'm paying people $1,000 a day for security at this place.
Higher, better security.
Mad Max Fury Road. You talk about a movie, that's just an entire chase. The entire film is one chase. Furiosa, okay? Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy, they go one direction. Then all of a sudden they get caught up. They go the other direction. The whole movie is one elaborate chase. How can you not love Mad Max Fury Road? It's a chase movie to end all chase movies. Even Tom Kirchin loved Mad Max Fury Road. He said he wanted to go run 5 miles and tell Bob Uecker all about it. That's how excited he was. Forget about pirate ships. I'm telling you about chase sequences here, people. Come on.
You know what? I'm going to take this opportunity right now to reverse course. And Adnan Virk, I want you on the pirate ship. I don't want to keep you out anymore. I believe you have now earned it. I want to talk to you about your movie opinions. I want to know what you have to say about things. I don't want you to have to breach security anymore. I want you to ride with us, Adnan, and I want to hear from you. And I want to use your movie expertise because I believe Adnan is better on the movies than David Samson is.
But he's employed.
Well, this is problematic, obviously, for the moment, but
quit, Adnan. Do it. Quit.
Come on, let's go.
But listen, put it on the poll, Guillermo. Should Adnan quit right now? This is a new day.
A meme did it.
All right, put it on the poll, Guillermo. Let's make it a democracy here at Le Batard Show. Would you like Adnan to be permanently banned and still have to climb over security, or would you just like him to be welcomed on the pirate ship? All right, let's do this, because you mentioned Ronin, and I was actually happy to hear Ronin, because what makes a good car chase scene? Because you're talking about Bullitt was 10 minutes long. The one in Ronin is ridiculous, but Billy's right when he says Fast and the Furious. We've just put all the car chase scenes in one movie, and it's gone 20 years long, and it goes down airplane tarmacs.
It reminds me, Dan, with Coming to America, which I just watched again. And by the way, speaking of my movie expertise, Coming to America 2, I just received this gift box. I don't think David Samson's getting gift swag, like I am, okay?
What is that?
Wow.
Wait, what'd you get there? So
Big
this is going on Amazon Prime. Everyone's excited about it. Eddie Murphy.
Wow.
What you got?
What? You got Say Hello to King of Zamunda. Okay?
Oh, my God.
You've got a crown?
He's got the crown.
What is that, a pillow?
And I've got a pillow. And by the way, I always assumed you had sex with your bathers. I know I do.
What just happened?
Got rose petals here.
All right, he's got to get up. He's got to get off the pirate ship. I'm now uncomfortable. I don't know what he just did. This is why he can't climb over security. What is that? What did you get from whom? And what about Coming to America? You went to you became a prop comic.
You didn't actually have a point to it. My point was this: the original Coming to America was a featured iconic barbershop sequences, as we all know. And then they actually made a movie called Barbershop with Ice Cube. So to your point, what Billy was saying, you had car chase sequences in Bullitt or Ronin and the French Connection. And then they said, what the hell? Let's just make an entire car chase movie, The Fast and the Furious. So what Coming to America and barbershops did in comedy, I was trying to draw that analogy as well to car chases.
So will you select one for us? Will you be the arbiter here with all of the power and just say the single greatest car chase scene in the history of the movies, according to Adnan Virk, whose movie opinions you can get where, Adnan? Because we have banned them here, but you can tell people where they can find you.
Cinephile Podcast. There's no paywall. It's easy access. Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. CINEPHILE. Despite the fact Dan will not give his stamp of approval, please do subscribe.
All right, so give us the best car chase scene all time, Adnan. Let's go.
Listen, I think it's French Connection, okay? I mean, literally, they did not have a permit. Gene Hackman was doing a lot of the driving, and Billy Friedkin said, what the hell, let's just go for it. They mounted a camera literally at the front of the car, which is why you get those great low-angle shots. And listen, Billy Friedkin, for perspective here, Dan knows, this is the guy who made The Exorcist, at one point was not happy about the reaction of the priest in a particular scene. This is a real priest. And he slapped the guy as hard as he could and said, now roll it, okay? There's one thing about Billy Friedkin, these 70s directors, they just said, what the hell? We'll figure it out. If there's a fatality in the French Connection, if Popeye Doyle doesn't make it, well, what the hell? It'll be a hell of an ending. So I just think the French Connection, if you watch that 12 minutes, it's pretty remarkable.
All right, I want to negotiate with you for a second here because I don't know what the story is behind your movie podcast, but this is what I do want to do, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I want to negotiate with everybody right here in the Zoom.
On-air negotiations?
Yes, with everybody,
wow.
Yes. Let's just throw it out in public here because things are heating up all around us, and we will have a home here within the next month, one would imagine. And so I would love if we could get Billy Gill to organize Adnan Virk and David Samson to talk about movies on a mystery crate or something, because I believe Adnan Virk, Samson has been our guy for many years on the movies. He watches a movie every single day. But Adnan has so many of these facts about the history of movies. I don't even know where you get all these stories. Where is it? Honestly, what are you reading a lot of reporting? Where is your information coming from that you can tell these incredible backstories on the history of these movies?
I think he just watches, reads, and retains. I mean...
Look at that. Stugotz just nailed it. Watch, read, and retain. I mean, that is the formula for success when it comes to being a cinematic almanac. And let's be honest, guys. I think Samson's run his course. All right? Great guy. Wow. I've done his podcast. Wow. I mean, he's got his own panic room. There's lots to like about David Samson, but it's a new day here, okay? Come on.
All right. I'm liking everything about this. All right, Adnan, we'll continue the conversation at a later date. Thank you for being on with us. For people who do not know, because we were calling you the other day to talk to you about this story in Seattle, because Adnan knows a lot about a lot, and he's a real baseball expert, and he just knows a staggering amount there as well. And you saw what happened where in this day, after this summer, Adnan, you just can't have the white power treat players of minorities like they're commodities, like they're not human beings. And so he resigns, but we were actually calling you the other day because we learned together, wait a minute, Adnan is partially Asian. He can speak on behalf of this. He can lead the charge on behalf of Asians to make sure that, what happened ended up happening, because Ichiro wasn't going to do it. One of the things I found fascinating about all this the other day, Adnan, is when it comes to social activism after this summer, Ichiro was unbelievably in the middle of that, could have gotten that fired with a word. He could have gotten that guy fired. But, of course, culturally, he would sit that out. And corporate sponsor sit it out. Like, this is a man, Ichiro, it must be exasperating to you as a proud Asian man that Ichiro cannot say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. How partially Asian are you? I'm sorry, just because I think this is shocking to people.
No, it is funny, Dan, when people often ask me, like, you fill out a survey. This is, okay, are you African-American? Are you Latino? Are you Asian? I click Asian. And one time I was doing this in front of a guy, and he looked at me and he goes, oh, I think you clicked the wrong box. I go, what do you mean? Like, I'm of Asian descent. Pakistan is in South Asia. It's South Asian to be specific, but if there's not a South Asian option, it would be Asian. He goes, yeah, but people think Asian, they think, I go, what, East Asian? They go, that's a different part of the continent. I would technically be South Asian. So as funny as that may sound, yes, I am speaking on behalf of all of Asia. And Mather's comments were so ignorant. Like you said, Dan, at any point in time, they would be tone deaf. But considering what this country has been through the last year plus, the only thing I can think, and this is terrible to say, but it's almost as if he was taking truth serum. Like he was thinking, hey, you know what? Everybody lies all the time. I'm going to be so transparent. I'm going to be so honest and tell you all what I'm thinking. So in some, perhaps, he felt he was being emboldened by saying, you know what, this guy's English isn't very good. I'll be honest, between us, this guy's translator costs $75,000. Like, that's a pain. But when you actually looked at the comments, you said to yourself, how could anyone on earth think that these were appropriate comments to say out loud, much less think? And what creates the problem now, Dan, is this. You start to have the stigma now with the Seattle Mariners to go, well, this is the president of the CO. Clearly, somebody else must espouse this feeling. And you go, well, hang on, that's not fair. Let's not paint one bad person with a broad brush. But I would understand why people would now say, well, if he's ignorant and he's the one in charge, is he giving this message to others? And as you pointed out, Seattle is about as culturally relevant a place for Japanese ball players as you could imagine. Between Ichiro and Kaz Sasaki and Hisashi Iwakuma, like there's several Japanese players who have had much success there. The community itself has a strong Asian population. For this to happen in Seattle, even to me, was so odd because, again, if it was in Arizona, perhaps, they don't have as much of a cultured population, perhaps, but bottom line is this. He loses his job. He resigned. They were ignorant comments, disappointing, and listen, you've always spoken about race in America and what a touchy issue it can be, but I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Those comments are wrong, and there's no place for them.
Adnan, though, the thing that was most interesting to me, even as he smeared Latin ball players whose English is just fine, English learned with great labor, English as a second language, for him to slur them is one thing, but that's not where I got bothered the other day, even though he had done that. The thing that ended up bothering me was the idea, the gall, Adnan, in the difficulty in the transition between these cultures and this man, the money, the leadership, the voice, casually saying, why am I paying these interpreters, these translators, these life coaches $75,000 a year? The dehumanizing nature of the money, speaking that boldly about not wanting to understand the cultural differences. Like, it bothered me after this summer. It's not the tone deafness. It's not even the timing. It's like, you dehumanizing turd. How do you lead that way? How are you the voice of a franchise and you don't understand trying to save $75,000 bleeping dollars that you're helping somebody from another country make you money here? Like, what kind of idiot are you that you don't understand in a position of leadership after this summer that you shouldn't lead when you're that kind of idiot?
Yeah, think about our man Chris, who's a noted athlete. We've talked about the great speed of Chris, how fast he is. Imagine he's playing in the Japanese baseball league. Imagine he's playing for the Nippon Ham Fighters, one of Bob Costas' favorite teams. And Chris afterwards has, workman-like Japanese. He's taken some classes. He feels like he can order in a certain restaurant. But afterwards, when presented with the trophy, says, you know what, I'd rather just speak in English. Is that okay? Of course, please, you're a translator. Chris, it's not your, listen, Stugotz barely speaks English well. It's okay. Whatever language you're comfortable in, it's fine. So I think, to your point, how could you not be tolerant and accepting of someone saying, listen, I'm making a huge transition in my life. I'm going across the globe here to play baseball. It would help my assimilation if I had somebody here who could communicate, because perhaps I might say things in the wrong manner, my grammar's off, I might use the wrong word choice, and then I might get made fun of and uncomfortable or ashamed or embarrassed, or maybe I'll make the league look bad or the team look bad. When you go to a new country, what do they teach you? The swear words first. What if I go on this team and everyone here is teaching me profanity and all of a sudden I'm using bad words, etc.? I'd love to have a translator if that's okay. Hey, for $75,000, if you can pitch to great acclaim and great success, that is the least we can do. Dan, if we looked at what certain guys ask for in terms of perks, Nelson Cruz just signed a new contract. He got a new chef worked into the deal. If Nelson Cruz can get a chef, then clearly a foreign speaker can get a translator if that helps his assimilation.
The part that was bothersome to me on top of this, and the layers of bothersome, though, Adnan, is the idea that you're kidding me, sir. You're kidding me. You won't even value the guys you know as the money are valuable? Like, it's one thing to do that to the help because it's in the minor leagues and you just need to throw sort of human bodies into the machine of, the maw so that you can make your commerce. That's one thing. But you won't even value the guys who merit value by any way in baseball that you do the math, the guys who are excellent, the guys who are indisputably good at what they do. You won't even value them?
Yeah, to your point, you want to treat everyone equally, and especially when you're in a position of leadership, right? This isn't just a guy who's kind of important. He's the president and the CEO of the Seattle Mariners. He is worth a lot more than you and I could even imagine. And you're speaking there informally, but still, anytime it's a public appearance, it's a public appearance. It's like when people put things on social media and say, well, I was just tweeting it. It doesn't matter. That's public record. When you put it out there, you have to own this stuff. You have to be accountable for it. And to your point, it's one thing if he was making a backhanded comment about a clubby, perhaps, who doesn't speak English. Again, incorrect comments, unfair. But this is a person of value. This is a person who's pitching. It's not like it's coming at a Mather's salary like, oh, man, I missed that last paycheck because I had to pay the translator $75,000. No, you made the decision to bring him into the team to win. If you don't want to win, if you don't think he's successful towards winning, then fine, don't take him. But that's part of the deal. You bring him in here, he's like a translator. That seems like a fair part of the transaction.
Adnan, briefly, this show's already kind of oddly been a Golden Globes-themed show when you consider our Big Suey. What are you looking for this weekend with the Golden Globe Awards?
Well, it's amazing, Mike, because I love Ricky Gervais more than anything, and he's so funny and so hysterical. Of course, he's not hosting this weekend, so that leaves a big void in my heart. But Amy Poehler and Tina Fey obviously have great chemistry, so I do look forward to their rapport. And what's going to be like, Mike, because so many people are going to say, I haven't been able to go to the movies. I don't even know these movies. So what's popular? What's winning? What should I watch? The Golden Globes is normally a precursor to the Oscars. This year, the Oscar nominations are coming up in mid-March. Golden Globes are this Sunday. The Oscars are going to be in late April. So the big thing that I really want, Mike, is Borat to do great. In a year of unpredictability, I think it wasn't only incredibly funny, but incisive commentary, deeply satirical. And you talk about a guy who is dedicated to his character. Stugotz and I will always disagree. He does not care for the method acting of Daniel Day-Lewis. But Sacha Baron Cohen is a Daniel Day-Lewis of comedy. He had to stay in character for months at a time, weeks at a time in dangerous situations. And Borat is up for Best Picture. He's up for Best Actor in a motion picture, musical, or comedy. For those that don't remember, the Globes and the Oscars, they separate drama and musical or comedy. Maria Bakalova is up for Best Supporting Actress. So I'd love to see Borat do well. Sacha Baron Cohen's speech would be great. He's also in the Trial of the Chicago 7, so he's up for Supporting Actor in a dramatic role as well. Nomadland is the favorite to win Best Picture, although Aaron Sorkin could make a pitch for the aforementioned Trial of the Chicago 7, and especially for you guys because your location. One Night in Miami. I am pushing hard for Leslie Odom. He's tremendous as Sam Cooke, who's one of the great singers in the 60s. It's a great movie. I hope you guys have all seen it. What if you locked in Ali, Jim Brown, Malcolm X, and Sam Cooke into a hotel room after Ali then Cassius Clay wins the heavyweight title, beats Sonny Liston. That's the premise for the film, directed by Regina King. So I hope One Night in Miami gets a little bit of love. And the film that I love more than anyone, seriously, Sound of Metal. It stars Riz Ahmed. He is up for Best Actor. He plays a heavy metal drummer who suddenly loses his hearing. It's an incredible film. I can't recommend it enough.
I mean, Jesus, pick a movie, Adnan.
Nomadland. Stu, all you care about is the money. Put money on Nomadland to win Best Picture, Director, and Actress, and you'll win some money.
Can you tell us, Adnan? Because I want to formalize this. I want to figure out how. I don't want to tease our audience.
Do we have a deal?
But I don't want to also be in breach of contract or do anything publicly I'm not supposed to be doing. So let's just, for this moment, just leave for the audience, okay, the idea of we want to change our relationship with Adnan. I don't want him breaching security anymore. I feel like he has earned, after being electrocuted by the electric fence too many times, he has earned his way to be on this thing as much as he wants to be on it.
But you know our audience always is going to want Adnan to have to breach security.
Okay, but they're going to have to choose between the two. So, but Billy, can you make happen? Is it what I'm telling you? It seems like Adnan has agreed to at least do a mystery crate for you as we continue to dance this magical dance between not negotiating with him on air and actually wanting him on the pirate ship because he's got a contract. Billy, are you going to lock him down right now for a mystery crate?
Sure.
Excellent.
Amazing booking.
Billy, you made a few words. Back to Stu's point, though, Dan, it's kind of like professional wrestling. Maybe the audience prefers me as a heel. They don't want me on Team Levitar. They want me breaching security. I cannot wait to see what the poll numbers say.
All right. See you later, Adnan. Thank you for being on with us.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Adnan.
Nothing in life is free. Time for some ads.
All right, let's take a second here for our friends at Advance Auto Parts. I love telling you about Advance Auto Parts. They always have our back. Been with us for years. We appreciate their commitment to the show. They get the show. Unlike any other sponsor we've had, I think. They get the show. Have you heard about their advanced same-day offers? Get this advance offer, free curbside pickup and free in-store pickup within 30 minutes on most in-stock products. That's the kind of speed that gets you back on the road with the parts you need and get you there fast. So head to your Advance Auto Parts store today. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations.
Guys, we have some breaking news on the J.J. Watt front.
What
now,
happened?
He's been leaving a lot of tea leaves and seems to be reveling in the fact that people are sleuthing around his tweets. At 9:59 a.m., J.J. Watt tweeted, "Midday naps, loathed as a child, revered in adulthood." Love that. Love that, man. What do you think he means by it?
I don't know.
Put it on the poll. Read that again, please. Say it again. It's like a quote. It's a poetry. It's a poem.
Is this a haiku? I'm not even sure. Midday naps, loathed as a child, revered in adulthood. Now, guys, you know how every time he tweets something, I'm like, oh, he's definitely coming to the Browns? I've got something for you. The Cleveland Naps was a professional baseball team from Cleveland, Ohio that existed 12 seasons, 1903 to 1914.
Wow.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. The afternoon nap, loathed as a child, revered in adulthood. Yes or no? Because J.J. Watt is going to end up somewhere, Stugotz. And I don't know. Do you remember what was that period? Because this is very conflicted for me. Houston and Texas are suffering a great deal right now. And the only time in the last 10 years that Stugotz couldn't say bad things about J.J. Watt is when he was doing such good humanitarian work in Houston that he had to shut up for about 10 minutes.
It was a tough period. It really was.
It was a dark time in Stugotz's life. I would say the darkest he's ever had, and he's been through some shit recently. So he couldn't say for 10 days or so, he couldn't say that J.J. Watt is a bum, J.J. Watt is terrible. And here we are, Mike. He's right back to his old ways because J.J. Watt is doing the J.J. Watt thing of tweeting in the middle of the night. Here I am in my log cabin being extra Captain America.
Can't he just take a nap? I mean,
you know what I was hoping for? For the Jets to be in on people this offseason, because can you imagine if the Jets were in play on J.J. Watt, how Stugotz would have to view this whole thing?
Why would J.J. want to go there, though? Listen, when you're a guy at the end of your career trying to win a championship, the place you're never going to is the New York Jets, so I never have to worry about that.
Yeah, but you'd be pro J.J. all of a sudden.
I'd love him. Yeah.
I want to talk about a couple of other things here because I was thinking the other day that Mike was absolutely right, even though it's a really super controversial hot take. Tua is indeed too close to his family. I believe that too close to his parents. I believe that is a controversy that we have to get out in the open because I believe that is so. And I will further argue that what you want from a quarterback, and I think this is indisputable, is that he has to have the relationship with his family that Aaron Rodgers does. That's the correct way to do that.
You have to be focused on football, not family.
Yes, not religion, not I love these people, not my brother is on a reality show and I love him under all circumstances. No, I want to be put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Do you prefer a quarterback who isn't a little too close to his parents?
Here's the problem. We're asking for the quarterback not to be a family man, but the ultimate family man is the greatest quarterback that's ever played. So how do we dissect that one?
Yeah,
Brady's very close with his family.
Yeah.
Very close with his parents.
It's a tough one. Yeah, that makes it very hard.
It's tough. And then, like, Patrick Mahomes is also close with his family. We know about his parents. His mom's very defensive. She called out Lou Riddick for calling Patrick Mahomes Pat.
Right.
That was funny. Didn't Lou Riddick publicly apologize?
I love that Lou Riddick, we call him Lou Riddick when he's Louis Riddick, but Patrick Mahomes' mom's like, you can't call him Pat.
No, please don't do that. Speaking of ESPN, can you tell me whether you guys noticed or not that ESPN wasn't very nimble on the Tiger Woods story? There was a lot that came out on the Tiger Woods stuff as it happened. And if you want a look into the life of Tiger Woods that is supremely human, HBO Max can sort of explain to you this athlete who has been in front of you for 20 years and you haven't really felt like you've gotten to know him, even though he's been super famous, and even though you thought you knew him. And then after his Buick commercials, it felt like he betrayed you. And all of the sports landscape, TMZ, it all changed, right, on Tiger's watch. You've heard me say before that he got literally caught with his pants down because the rules changed on how we covered this stuff. We never did this to athletes. And that HBO documentary in 2 parts takes you through sex addiction, drug addiction, all the things that arrive at the simple mythological story that we love in sports. LeBron has done some of it. Be a prodigy, be great, fail and be human. Allow us to celebrate your redemption and feel good about sports. And so we've arrived in a place with Tiger Woods because we behaved badly with Tiger Woods in a lot of places where he's on the end of this. You just saw him win with his kid, looking like a happy father coming through divorce, wrecking his wife in a way that was so unfair, and she's unspeakably classy, handling the disgrace in knowing that your husband was doing those things in private, and then they all become public.
what you saw was him play a tournament with his kid, and you saw Tiger being able to pass along the thing that he learned from his dad to his son, and that was a very cool moment.
But what you saw is this human being put through the grinder, made a god by disciplined parents. All the story that's amazing of Tiger Woods is that he was groomed to be a robot, not a human being, a robot in that sport. And then fame got on his doorstep and pain got on his doorstep, and it became sex addiction, drug addiction, and then the redemption story that America loves. And then what did you feel when you see the pictures of that crash? It brings you back to where we started with the pandemic and Kobe dying. Some part of you connected with the frailty, the humanity of the superhuman, and the mortality in, well, what happened there? Could it have been that Tiger Woods...
I know where you're going with this. Don't do it. Don't do it, because it seems as though in your what is going to be perceived as an ESPN criticism, which I don't think is fair, because no one was particularly nimble when it came to this story, to the point that I saw this absolute trash can of a human, Greg Gutfeld on Fox and Friends, like take the opportunity to say that his own father-in-law died, and he was a great man. It was just bizarre. I think he's on Fox News as the 5.
But I think the coverage... Listen, it's tough when you're doing it on the spot and something like that. That seismic happens, and you don't know why it happened. You don't know what's going to happen. I think the coverage was fair to Tiger.
There's journalism. There's journalism here. And what you're asking for is reckless speculation at a time that it's way too soon for that. So the only thing that people can really do, I even saw Stephen A. Smith on Good Morning America, who doesn't really have a relationship with Tiger Woods, just speaks to what Tiger Woods means to people, because this was a Kobe Bryant situation. We didn't have the facts. And I think this is a place, given what's in his past with car accidents, that you need to be particularly careful with.
My mind went to a lot of those places, though. Was Tiger under the influence? Was he tired? Was there pain medication that was enabling him to be that exhausted where maybe he just closed his eyes for a minute, lost control of the car, went off the road? I think all that stuff is fair based on his past, and I know it was unseemly. I know people had an issue with it.
But you always,
that's where my mind went.
But you always think, though,
Tiger earned some of that, Dan. He earned some of that coverage.
But you always think, though, that you're entitled, that however it is that you get your information and news is the correct and right way to get it, because it's the way that you want it delivered to you. There's a great deal. You run this always through the prism of, do I want it, should I have it? And we went through this with Tiger. You lived 10 years in Tiger's bedroom, where we went from castigating him on the air. You're so immoral. You're awful. How could you betray us? You're the worst. You're the worst. You betrayed us in the Buick commercials, Family Man, to where it is that you ended up with him, which was like you've gone back and forth with this guy emotionally. You've been connected to this guy as someone who loves golf, where you have felt hurt by him, betrayed by him. You wished for him to be condemned nationally, mocked nationally for his infidelities. And then as soon as he's hugging his mother and crying in front of a blue screen in Orlando, you're like, oh, why did I want that? Why did I ever want him to have to apologize to me?
Right, and I enjoyed the comeback as much as anyone, him winning the Masters a year or 2 years ago. But I'm just talking about the coverage, and I'm not just saying, Dan, on the internet. I'm talking about ESPN. I'm talking about major news outlets. They took me to a place my mind was already at. Hey, why did this happen? And it's because we are armed with the images of Tiger in the car. We are armed with images at the beginning of that documentary where Tiger is stumbling around after being arrested, for driving under the influence. Like, we're armed with those images. And therefore, I feel like the coverage was fair, because I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, what exactly are you looking for in their coverage when you levy the criticism,
well,
which
forgive
could be
me.
perceived
Hold
as
on
a
a second. Hold on a second. I never even got to my point, though. We got sidetracked sort of talking about Tiger Woods, and I wasn't going to criticize ESPN. I was going to look at what happened there and just sort of be interested, in the absence of ESPN news, how hard it is to be nimble with breaking news when you are someone who has highly questionable taped in the afternoon, and that's in your 2:30 programming or The Jump or whatever, because we do these studio shows. This wasn't meant to start as a criticism in any way. I will criticize ESPN when it's merited. I was just sort of observing, and in a front-end way to a conversation I wanted to have about Tiger, that it was difficult to be nimble in real time. The way I remember, Mike, how Michael Irvin was covered with breaking news on the spot when he was accused of something 30 years ago, and he came out of a strip club screaming at the cameras because of an accusation, yelling at him because we went straight to news, and the news organization was nimble and immediately arrived on the scene of the thing that people, man, Stugotz, how often, you tell me how often anything happens in sports where people have to go and find their television, not the internet, because they want to hear live coverage of what happened to Tiger Woods here. And so I was just sort of marveling at what happened there and the change in journalism, and then how we arrive at this point with Tiger where that felt like Kobe Bryant at the beginning of the pandemic, where we're all, did you see what happened? Right. Oh, my God, a nation in mourning because an idol was mortal.
I think the lack of information, though, contributed. You realize that accident took place while we were on the air on Tuesday, and it wasn't revealed until hours after we were done recording, and I think the reason that you had, media outlets kind of nimble, not knowing what to do with it, is no one knew the severity of it. They were keeping it very, very hush. Tiger's team was keeping it very, very hush. So.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe the Kobe Bryant thing, too, in terms of how law enforcement goes about doing these things, because there were all sorts of leaks. It was rumored out there that there were reports out there before the family even knew when Kobe Bryant passed away. When I saw the Tiger Woods coverage, outside of understanding how responsible they had to be given it, I actually compared it directly to the Kobe Bryant coverage, which I actually thought ESPN handled quite well. So I was like trying to identify what are the differences here. Is there less mobility because there's pandemic protocol over at Bristol? Is it harder to get a body? Is it harder? Or are we just waiting for more information because we've already confirmed through our news sources that Tiger Woods that he's alive, so how exactly do we do this? It was pretty evident once the TMZ report started circling in that we lost Kobe Bryant. With Tiger, there was so much more that needed to be corrected out there in terms of tying down news sources and making sure that you weren't exposed from a journalistic standpoint.
How did you guys experience it? Because you, Chris, are somebody who's a giant golf fan, and this is the rare athlete that connects across generations. I don't think there's anyone listening to this who doesn't have, never mind thoughts on Tiger Woods, never mind just knowing Tiger Woods, but opinions or feelings about Tiger Woods. I'm guessing there isn't anyone listening to this who isn't in some way interested in the humanity of Tiger Woods as an icon across sports. If you love sports, you're sort of fascinated. How was that thing allowed to be? A greatness made from the womb, designed by parents of super discipline, and the place that documentary went, Stugotz, and it went everywhere gracefully through the sexual stuff, because it could have been just, 10-person orgies and a lot of the stuff that people would have eaten up as a documentary, but
they went deep, yeah.
But wouldn't have the nuance of this, where you've got a man who was friends with Earl Woods, crying on camera, admitting that he was a bad influence to Tiger as he grew up because of how much he cheated on his wife, and Earl Woods was a bad influence to Tiger because of how much he cheated on his wife, and Tiger saw it. And then you get to the end point on that, where he's buried, Earl Woods, who told us Tiger Woods was going to be a messiah. He's buried in an unmarked grave because his wife felt so betrayed by what the son did, because the son did the same thing to his wife, like created that same pain in Elle by publicly disgracing a graceful, honorable woman who had only done right by him, publicly and evidently privately, if you believe all the reporting about what a majestic woman this was at the side of Tiger Woods, who reportedly hits his golf club, takes his golf club and starts the whole thing that changes the way we cover this stuff. Changes really all of sports journalism, because she bashed allegedly it was bashed the back of the car, frustrated by how he had shamed her with these things. And he learned it from his dad. He learned it from the guy who told us all along that his kid was going to be a messiah. That part of it, the story arc is unbelievable, that a robot would be that human.
But just going back to the coverage for a second, because I'm interested in this, were you put off by the fact that it felt like Kobe Bryant without knowing whether or not?
Guys, I don't know. I'm sorry if I misconveyed something. Mike thinks I'm going to criticism, and you think I'm doing something else.
No, but were you uncomfortable? Were you made uncomfortable by that? It felt like we were watching. It felt like Kobe Bryant. It felt exactly like that day, and perhaps we should have reserved some judgment and waited to find out.
Stugotz, I'm not interested in doing an examination, actually, of critique here. I'm just fascinated that in 18 months' time, and I wish I was saying at the front end of a pandemic and the back end of a pandemic. In 18 months, this thing started. You guys remember how you felt as a country through sports and through one of these idols when you learned that Kobe Bryant had been extinguished, a family man. You all felt that. That started this pandemic. And so, because I'm interested in journalism and the way these things move, I've been fascinated by the turn Brian Williams has taken right now into just full-on snark. And I don't want to do a politics show, but I'm fascinated by some of the things happening in the media that I've seen happening in the media since Brian Williams and all these guys who, you know, I saw someone write that Brian Williams is the Pierce Brosnan of Ted Koppel's, and I don't know whether she meant Piers Morgan or Pierce Brosnan, but they both end up working because Brian Williams has made the turn from, in the media landscape after fake news, from being a helicopter pilot in Saigon fakely who threw away his television hair and his whole career, and now he's a guy who's just doing snark and, you know, lefty stuff, making fun of the right side. I'm fascinated by journalistic things. And in real time as this happened, as America could gather around a television from a time when, you know, we could believe in our news, I thought it was interesting that I couldn't find what I was looking for on the network. I've always associated with sports, and I understood why it is that would happen. I wasn't even making moral judgment.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this is interesting. That it's harder now for this big, giant machine that was always there for you, fairly or unfairly, no matter what the story. There for you. The moment a story broke, you knew you could find it on any one of ESPN's channels.
I only asked you that because my wife said to me, did Tiger die? And I said, we don't know. And she said, this feels like the day Kobe died. That's why I asked you that question.
Yeah, we're far removed from ESPN News going live. You could always count on ESPN News going to press conferences, and we've all seen what happened to ESPN News. Hell, we were even taken off of ESPN News. It's just repurposed content. I wonder if it is harder to get people like at a shot during COVID protocol. So I extended on that. I did start seeing it in other networks, but I don't watch ESPN as much for that stuff. I knew with Tiger Woods that I would be able to go to an actual news entity like CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News for that matter that covered it. I was watching CNBC at the time, and they broke into coverage. So I knew with a name like that, who's like word association, like he's bigger than the sport that he plays in, I knew that I'd be able to get the coverage that I was seeking, responsible as it may have been, on traditional outlets. I didn't even look for ESPN because he was that hyped. Stugotz, I'm curious to know if you did the same thing I did. I started finding out on social media which entities were covering it well.
Right.
And instead of going to ESPN, I actually went to Golf Network because it's the Golf Network.
Sure.
They seemed first on it. They had all their analysts there. With Kobe Bryant, if we're going to directly compare these two things, I wanted to go to ESPN, not just because of their journalism power at the time, but I knew that that's where I would hear Stephen A. Smith talk about it. I knew that's where I would hear Michael Wilbon talk about it. I knew the talent roster that ESPN had, and I knew that they were qualified to discuss Kobe Bryant. ESPN and golf coverage, not necessarily. There is, outside of Scott Van Pelt, there really isn't a name that I can say off the top of my head. Collins, like, there isn't a talent roster there that you can go to fill as the journalism does its work. So I went to Golf Network because their entire talent roster is qualified to discuss.
It's a 24-hour network that covers golf. Right, I understand.
ESPN doesn't really cover golf.
You went to Chambly? That's where you went to?
I would listen to Mike Greenberg talk about what it meant. Like, he's actually one of the golf personalities, as if he doesn't wear enough hats at ESPN.
I was kind of just bouncing around. I went to ESPN first. I went to CNN eventually. I went to the Golf Channel for a little bit. Came back to CNN, back to ESPN. What I wanted in that moment was Scott Van Pelt because he has an intimate relationship with Tiger Woods. I didn't get it. We didn't get it till later that night. Yeah, I was just trying to fish around for the coverage that gave me what it was I was looking for. And what I was looking for is exactly what they kind of gave me, because I was thinking the same things. How did this happen to Tiger? And was there something behind this happening to Tiger? Meaning, was he out late the night before? Was he on pain medication? Was there alcohol involved? What happened here? I didn't mind that people went to that place. I was thinking to myself, oh, my God, imagine when this man actually does die, because the world stopped for like 6 hours and he wasn't dead. And so I was thinking, me and my wife were talking, imagine what the reaction would be if he had actually died.
It shows how far we've come along, because we know what we want. And quite honestly, it's speculative. And it's not the way that it used to be, but given the instant nature of the social media apps that we're on, people identifying on Twitter, wow, hey, this is where Junior Seau was close to it. So what kind of darkness? Single car accident. And people start making those leaps. So embedded in your mind, you feel like you know more about the story when you're watching people that have to be careful, because they might actually be liable on these matters, especially if Tiger Woods is okay. I understand where it goes. The problem is us. Not in ESPN not being nimble enough or some of these other entities being responsible. The problem is us thinking we're a lot more educated on matters than we actually are.
So there's two things, because as a dad, what I said about Kobe at the time when he passed away is Kobe's missing out on the best parts. As good as he had it and as great as he was on the court, something we could never relate to, the best parts were yet to come. Seeing your kid do it is infinitely better than you doing it yourself. So I was relieved that Tiger's still going to have the ability to be with his kid, teach his kid, and if his kid decides to go that route and play on the PGA Tour, to be able to help and see his kid do it, because I promise you, it will feel infinitely better to Tiger watching his kid win than him winning himself. But I do wonder if this happened to Chris, because he's as big a golf fan as I am. Selfishly for me, once I was, Tiger's okay, great, he's not going to die here. Selfishly for me, I was upset because it felt like in that moment, Chris, we would never be able to see Tiger play golf again.
Oh, there were so there were so many people, Chris. There were so many people doing that one where they were like, "Will this end his career?" It was fascinating to watch people talking past his life to wonder, "Will this end his career?" Not where will it end his life? There were a couple of golfers quoted. They're like, "Why are you guys even asking me when we don't know if this can result in compartment syndrome? Why are you guys, before we know that whether this is life threatening or not? Why are you guys asking me how this impacts you?"
Right. Well, I could say that once we had the news that he was going to be okay, that's where my mind went. Like, man, have I watched Tiger for the last time?
A lot of people did that.
I started thinking about that last Masters where he won it. I was like, wow, that was it. That was the. Right. But back to Mike, Andy North, very offended right now by what you said about ESPN. Mm-hmm. And also, were you guys thrown off when you saw the Dwayne Wade video with Tiger Woods? Because I feel like he released that video around the time when the news broke the next day. And it was just like my timeline was thrown off. I thought he got into an accident right after playing golf with Dwayne Wade, but it was the day before. That was odd timing with all that.
I mean, there's no way for Wade to know that. He released it the morning after. But again, Chris, we did an entire show. That accident happened during our show, and we didn't know about it. So I don't think Dwayne really knew about it.
I think that's a fair place to take it, especially when the news came out that it was a lower leg injury. At first, you have jaws of life, and you're genuinely worried. Like, what does this mean? Is there blood loss with this type of injury? But then you realize, well, now he's got a rod in his leg, and golf isn't a sport that you lean on your athleticism all too much, but okay, instead of mourning the man's life, thank God he's still around, but what he gave me, when I mourn his life, I'm going to mourn the fact that I'm not going to get to see this guy perform anymore, and that is still a viable question to ask right now.
What a amazing story, Stugotz. When you talk about what can now be the Tiger Woods documentary after a summer when The Last Dance had a relationship. ESPN and Michael Jordan created a 9-part commercial where afterward you weren't left with the feeling, well, I know how he became great, or I know how he became that. It was a really polished commercial that was popular and wonderful and did all the things in Michael post-career that Nike did for Michael before that, because we had access. But the athletes of our time are LeBron, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. These are the guys. Derek Jeter is going to make a run here. The last gasp of baseball. Baseball's last star. Derek Jeter is going to get this kind of run on a documentary series. And you're talking about 4 athletes that publicly, right? This has been fairly amazing. To have them in the Nike machine for a quarter century of feeding us all of our sports. All 4 guys, all of them, kind of unknown to us. Not hugely public, even though their jobs, their icon status, all 4 of them, these mythological creatures who didn't give the machine anything in quotes, but the marketing machine took them and took the mythology of sports and made them the athletes of our lifetime. And we're going to cover them now in the content age with documentaries that are several parts. Tom Brady's is going to be 9 parts, but I'm telling you that what HBO just did with Tiger Woods in 2 parts, you guys, showed me the story arc in a way that was profoundly human. But this is where we're also human, because I'm not kidding you. I burst out laughing during a time where a lot of people were scared and wondering, is Tiger okay? And somehow you feel a connection to one of these icons, even though you've never really known him. And you're like, is he okay? Is he going to be okay? And so I go to where the news is. And then I see the first comments. And the first comments where people are searching for news, and the news is just, we don't know what the status is, but Tiger Woods' life may be in peril. People writing into CNN immediately. At least he will be faithful until he can walk again. Who said you got to walk to lay the pipe? By the looks of it, he must be the first human being to ever break a leg. I kind of don't care. He likes vagina more than he likes golf. Get over it. Like, what we've done with that fame, where we feel entitled to it, and in the comment section, we tear it down. Like, we're still doing that shit, Stugotz. We're just doing it differently. We're still doing the same shit to these people. We don't learn the lessons, even as they break all their bones and have sex addiction and drug addiction to get rid of the pain. We still tear at them like piranha.
I'm sorry about that last one. Stugotz here. Let's take a minute for my friends at Advance Auto Parts, our friends at Advance Auto Parts. Listen, Dan and I ask the bare minimum. That's what we ask of you, the audience, okay? Take care of the people who support this show, who get the show, and Advance Auto Parts has been supporting this show for years now, and they get the show, and they have truly become friends with me, Dan, the shipping container, the entire Le Batard Show crew. We love them. We love them. So take good care of them. Why? Because they take good care of us, because they get the show, because I'm telling you to. How about that? Have you heard about their advanced same-day offers? Amazing. Get this. Advance offers free curbside pickup and free in-store pickup within 30 minutes on most in-stock products. 30 minutes. That's the kind of speed that gets you back on the road with the parts you need fast. So head to your Advance Auto Parts store today. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz Podcast.
Ryan Cortez, Parakeet Cortez, I'm going to bring you on to the show here because I saw on your face a frustration when Dan set up hour one and he mentioned the Miami Heat and he said the Boston Celtics. Closely thereafter saying we are the Celtics, we are the Raptors, even though we haven't been healthy all year.
The C's.
You got me to break there. The Celtics, yes, they've had their COVID issues. No one has had worse COVID issues, we've detailed that, than the Miami Heat, starting an NBA record most starting lineups. Now, Jason Tatum, it's actually scary what Jason Tatum has said post-COVID, the symptoms that he's dealing with, but anyone with a pulse would tell you that the Boston Celtics this season have been healthier than the Miami Heat. How dare Dan Le Batard do this? As Minister of Heat Propaganda, Ryan Cortez, educate the man.
Well, the thing is highly questionable. Pardon the interruption around the horn. None of those shows are talking about the Miami Heat today. So you figure you come here, Mr. Miami, Dan Le Batard's going to talk about the Miami Heat, perhaps in the local hour, perhaps in the Big Suey. Perhaps he'll do it the whole show just to spite everyone. And he hasn't talked about him once yet. Did you even watch the game last night?
All right, well, let's do this. So Jimmy Butler, they beat Toronto, but I'm going to cede the floor to you because you were sending me a whole bunch of stats about the game, and so I am going to just cede the floor to a homer that somehow, and I didn't think this was possible, can out-homer even our homeriest homer, Mike Ryan, Heat homer.
But I think he asked you if you watched the game.
I did not. No, I did not watch the game.
You would have seen.
Why would PTI and Around the Horn be talking about the Heat who are 15 and 17?
Honestly,
they should be leading with it. They would talk about the Celtics who are
ridiculous.
15 and 17, but the Heat don't get the same respect. Explain that to me, Billy.
Yeah, may your praise be as loud as the criticisms, Billy. And Dan, if you would have watched, you would have seen how wrong you are. That Jimmy Butler can't hit the long distance shot. Are you kidding me? 75% from three, absolutely carrying that team.
Jimmy's shooting 46% from three over his last 9 games. I don't know if you know that, Dan. You would know if you were paying attention to the games. But
You know what? You know what my problem is?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what my problem is.
Wow.
My problem is I did not watch the Heat game, but you know what I was watching? Oh, yeah. LeBron in his last 9 games is shooting 19% from three. I'm still in love with him. You guys know it. I still love him. I've loved him across the decade. You guys can't handle it because you're homers who you love him 1 minute, you hate him. You have the same relationship with him that Stugotz would have with J.J. Watt if he became a Jet.
I'm always going to be burned a little bit by the fact that he chose to leave us. Well, obviously, I'm always going to have a little bit of me that's hateful towards what LeBron ripped away from me.
He said 9.
Yeah, he did. He did. And he was supposed to be here the entire time. And he won one with Cleveland, and then he beat my Miami Heat in the finals. I have to take the L on that one. But I'm just generally bothered by how the media reacts to the Miami Heat, whether it's bubble, fluke, blah, 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 whether it's ignoring the fact that they've missed their best players this season, and we're taking that as confirmation bias, not even allowing the season to play itself out. Guess who's now within 2 games of home court advantage in the NBA playoffs? The Miami Heat. The bad boys are back in the building. The Miami Heat are back in the building, and all it took was winning 4 straight games. All it took.
You're really doing 2 games back of home court advantage. Like, the entire league is 2 games back of home court advantage. They're 2 games under 500. Also, on the Jimmy Butler note, he's hitting, 57% from 3.
Mm-hmm.
He's hit 7 threes this season. Danilo Gallinari hit 10 last night. In 1 game against the Boston Celtics, hit 10 threes. Like, 7. I'm supposed to be impressed.
Gallinari is still playing?
He's a
Hawk?
Come on. Tricky math. Allow me to take
They're
this
2 games ahead of being 12th in the East also.
Allow me to take this opportunity to do one of my favorite things, which is shitting on Sixers fans, who last week, because I got aggregated once again in Sixers
They're
Twitter
21
land.
and 11. Just be careful.
They're top of the East.
Okay, we're like 6 games back, please. That's a week. All right?
You're
Sixers
closer to last
fans.
place than you are to first place.
Sixers fans.
You're Ben Affleck in Boiler Room now?
Sixers fans.
You have the Heat winning 6 games in a week, playing 6
Sixers
games in a
fans
week.
who made one of my tweets that I sent after the Sixers were trailing 0-2 in a series that was very clearly over. I sent that tweet saying, Sixers fans, how are we feeling about the whole Jimmy Butler thing? Because they said Jimmy Butler went to Miami to basically retire, and he was going to a team that had no chance at even making the playoffs, let alone the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm sorry for all the F
What are you doing? Why so many F words?
Fired up about this.
Chris.
So Philadelphia fans take that, and it's like some sort of victory lap because their first place in the East and the Miami Heat are at the time not in the playoff picture, even though there's expanded playoffs. Educate yourselves, Sixers fans. How the hell, see, I'm better. How the hell do Sixers fans show their faces? All right? Where do you get off thinking that this is a place for you to start piping up because you're a couple of games over 500 in the Eastern Conference after the embarrassment of last season, after all that shit you talked about Jimmy Butler? Last I checked, Philadelphia, the Miami Heat were reigning, defending Eastern Conference champions. You can never say another word. I don't give a shit if you hold up Larry O'Brien this year. That debate, you lost.
All right,
so shut your mouth.
Okay. So anyways, he doesn't want to be told on the air here that there's a homer more homery than he is. So let me get back to what
they lost, Dan. They lost. People want to say it was a fluke. I saw the Heat go to a Game 6 in the NBA Finals, and I saw the Sixers have a cup of coffee swept out of the playoffs. You do not talk like you won anything. My NBA calendar stretches deep into the summer. You've never been there.
Come on.
My entire life. I've won 3 championships. I've gone to like 17% of the finals that I've been alive for. I've never seen your franchise do jack shit. Shut up. You're everything that's bad about Philadelphia. Nothing is good about you. Don't talk to me about Ben Simmons until he gets past the second fucking round.
All right. Let's settle down here. Billy.
He was a bounce away from doing that a couple of years ago.
Yes, I mean, they almost
Because Jimmy Butler carried their ass.
They almost beat Kawhi.
Because Jimmy Butler carried their ass.
They should have beaten Kawhi.
They should have a bounce. Embiid was weeping in the locker room. Billy, why do you keep saying bottom of the standings here? This is the position you want to take. The Heat are now healthy, and they are...
It's numbers. It's not made up. It's the truth. They're just as close to last place as they are to first place.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Heat are now healthy? Last I saw, Tyler Hero was on the sidelines with a mask on. We haven't been healthy all year long. Coming for that ass, Philadelphia. Just because you beat Gabe Vincent doesn't give you bragging rights. We won the Eastern Conference. You were an afterthought last year. You fired everybody. Don't talk to me about Seth Curry until we get into the month of July.
But factually, Billy is right. They are just as close to the Pistons as they are to the Sixers. I mean,
Cortez, he's going to regret this. He's going to regret this in the postseason when the Sixers have...
How? You're talking like last season didn't happen. They won. It's over. The debate is not a debate. Jimmy Butler went to Miami. Miami went to the finals. Philadelphia went f***ing home. It's not a debate. They got swept. They were a joke. The same problems for that team are going to exist in the summer. Ben Simmons doesn't shoot. He doesn't. Are we pretending? Are we pretending like he can shoot?
You're going to blow out
he can't.
vocal cord. Yes, Billy.
I have to give Mike credit. I didn't think anything would make me miss the Tiger Woods talk, but he did it.
Nothing in life is free. Time for some ads.
All right, let's take a second here for our friends at Advance Auto Parts. I love telling you about Advance Auto Parts. They always have our back. Been with us for years. We appreciate their commitment to the show. They get the show. Unlike any other sponsor we've had, I think. They get the show. Have you heard about their advanced same-day offers? Get this advance offer, free curbside pickup and free in-store pickup within 30 minutes on most in-stock products. That's the kind of speed that gets you back on the road with the parts you need and get you there fast. So head to your Advance Auto Parts store today. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations.
It's such a weird position. Like, you'll ride for the Marlins, who have denigrated the fan base at every turn.
But leave Billy,
Heat, who have done everything right.
You leave Billy's positions alone. Okay, they've been carefully sculpted over time.
Unbelievable.
The Heat.
Tired of hearing about this damn Heat. Please.
That's enough. Heat and the Canes. Jesus.
Won 2 titles with a cheat code in LeBron.
LeBron didn't know shit about winning until he got here.
Oh my God, didn't know about.
He honestly didn't know shit. His college year.
Pretty sure he said that. He's admitted it.
He has admitted it.
That's nonsense. You guys know that's nonsense, right?
He took that culture and brought it to
what culture?
I'm not saying he wouldn't have been great, obviously, but the Heat. He's given the Heat. He wants to shit at the Heat at every turn, and even he has said that organization taught me some stuff.
No, I mean, you don't think Pat Riley had any influence in him coming here? Like, he begged Pat Riley to take over the coaching job. Like, come on, man. Like, it wasn't just Dwayne and the friendship.
He really showed Pat a ton of respect on the way out too. I got to tell you, he really valued Pat Riley.
But if LeBron goes somewhere else during the summer of 2010,
if they would have gone to the Knicks or to the Bulls with the 3 guys, it would have been the same thing.
Maybe not. It would have been the same thing with the Knicks.
Yeah, if he would have gone to the Knicks with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, it would have been the same thing.
No, with the wrong coach that doesn't teach him to back down JJ Barea and revolutionize the offense.
Where is Heat culture in 2011?
You trust
getting
the Knicks,
developed.
You trust the Knicks to bring in Shane Battier, Mike Miller, and all those savages.
Talk to him, Chris Cody.
I love you guys.
Mike Bibby too.
15 and 17.
What does 15 and 17 mean? Like, the whole team's been hurt all year.
17.
That means they've won 15 games and lost 17.
I know, but it's an irrelevant stat, and you know it is. Like, it means nothing if in the playoffs they're healthy. 10 teams make the playoffs this year. Like, if they get in and they're healthy, it doesn't matter what seed they are.
Let's not pretend like there aren't countless examples of teams that have shown that they can make it to the finals absolutely coasting during the regular season. I think Shaq and Kobe one year went to the 5 seed and then won an NBA championship. Come on.
And those were years where 10 teams weren't getting in. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
And if you watch these games, the Heat have blown so little stupid mistakes. The Heat could easily be, 6 games over.
Well said. Yes, nailed it.
I was trying to do the math in 15 and 17, and I was trying to come up with.
If you'd watch the games, it'd be fairly obvious why the Miami Heat aren't winning games. Because their best players aren't out there consistently. That's in the story.
They're also
even
bad
with
at
the
offense.
Injuries, they should have won 5 of the games they've lost,
including against Philadelphia, where they just got by the
Warriors
referee.
game. That Warriors game was bullshit.
Last night, Hero and Bradley didn't even play. They're still not at full strength.
No.
You're just getting a better look at them now.
All right, let's do this. Let's do this.
Chris thinks they should be 20 and 13.
I don't know what Chris was saying or the math he was doing.
Just know it was well said.
I don't think anything's ever been said.
I think Mike said that, actually. You gave him credit for something I said yesterday earlier. So I think Mike did
don't lash out at me defensively.
You were off yesterday.
Just please, just settle down.
That Tua take by Mike, great take.
This is what's happening around here.
This Heat team is tearing us apart.
I've got to show the audience.
Wait a second. Chris is upset that you assigned his take to Mike Ryan.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, no, that was my take.
The dangerous game, Dan. Be careful.
I'll own that. You don't want that take, man.
What's the dangerous game?
I mean, when someone makes a great take and you assign it to someone else, it's a dangerous game. You hurt someone's feelings, man. Chris is hurt right now.
I flatly said he's too close to his parents. I'll own that one. You want to join me on this island? Come on.
Well, no, this is the problem. This is the problem with what's happening.
I'm with you.
Okay, can you just settle down for a second?
You're my brother.
I don't think anyone needed to hear from you that you were with Mike in that moment.
Yeah.
Mike needed it.
I need the support right now.
Okay, well, I feel like Chris Cody's the one who needs the support because, again, another voice comes in, and you saw what has been the Chris Cody lane of Heat Homer talk. A Parakeet Cortez came floating through, giving opinions, and you saw what happened, right? Mike Ryan, just indignant, blasphemed against. You will not say that anyone is a bigger Heat homer than me. And then all of a sudden, Parakeet Cortez disappears into the shadows because Mike Ryan can't stop cursing because no one around here shall be a bigger Heat homer than me. Chris Cody just got bumped out of his lane, and Mike Ryan felt threatened. You just saw it happen. And next thing you know, Heat Homer talk, which really is not the thing that we need to be riding into the future. We're soaring on the sails of Heat Homer talk. Only the most annoying character that there is around here.
Let me take a breath. The AC's off. I'm drenched in sweat right now.
Yeah.
We do this thing where we speak in hypotheticals a lot. Like, what if LeBron didn't latch with the Miami Heat? And what is this culture? Where was culture when you signed Hassan Whiteside? And you want to just ignore the very simple fact that the Miami Heat made it to the NBA Finals as Eastern Conference champions fairly easily. Fairly easily. In 2006, before LeBron James won, they won a championship. LeBron comes here. LeBron's a great player, probably wins a championship outside of the Miami Heat, but he didn't at the time. The Miami Heat pushed him through there. And then, unlike the other teams that he's left, he left them deserted. No assets. They had to rebuild themselves. Just a couple of years later, around Jimmy Butler, a superstar player that they got through free agency with no cap room, okay, because that's the culture. That right there is a culture. To be in position to sign a superstar, the likes of Jimmy Butler, the likes of a superstar that took you to the NBA Finals, they did so with no cap room. That's Heat culture. And Jimmy Butler lays it all on the court to the point that he becomes a meme. And if the Miami Heat were healthy, I think that series goes 7. So this isn't some crazy hypothetical. If you're doing the Heat culture game, Heat culture done one several times.
Billy, why skeptical Billy phase? Why?
I'm just laughing at Cortez, who wrote in the chat, LeBron should have been fined for that trick he pulled on us with Shabazz Napier. Fined by who? For what?
The NBA
reason?
was
What does that
deceitful
even
act.
mean?
The NBA fines for all kinds of things. That was truly deceitful. It wasn't right what he did, where he tricked us into drafting Shabazz Napier.
Right.
He should have been fined for that.
He is
act.
right.
That's
All right, hold on.
What would you have fined him, just out of curiosity?
$50,000.
That sounds right.
Take off your Heat hat. I know it's not a visual medium, but I'm tired of you wearing it.
I like this, Ryan.
I love him.
I mean, hold on, because Chris is going to get bumped out here. Go ahead, Ryan. Have it, Billy, because you are every bit as annoying as Mike Ryan is around here as Heat Homer. You are absolutely that on social media. You are the biggest Heat Homer. Is there a bigger one? Give me a guy.
Stop calling me a Heat homer. I don't do homerism. I just provide the facts. Billy doesn't do a good job of providing the facts. He just sees 15 and 17. He doesn't watch the games.
That's
like
fiction.
you.
I made up that record. That's a fictional record.
Cortez is big
Doesn't
on
matter. I
watching
know
the
because I don't pay
games.
attention to that record. You know what record I pay attention to? 4-0 in the last 4 games. 8-3 in the last 11. Like when Jimmy Butler plays, like it doesn't like we're the best team in the league when
over
we're
the course,
healthy, and we still are not healthy.
Here's a fact: Ryan Cortez, the Miami Heat are 8-3 over their last 11 games.
He just gave us that.
Yeah, no.
Steve Martin, prop comic.
Yeah! Finally! Revenge, motherfuckers!
You see what's happened around here? This is your fault, Mike.
That was a preamble to the point that they were better than the Sixers. God damn it, I hate building a snarky culture there. Everyone turns against me. I was just setting myself up to the fact that they were better than the Sixers. Okay, you guys have at it. You guys want to laugh at the Miami Heat?
Hold on.
You guys want to laugh at the Miami Heat despite the fact that they made it to the NBA Finals. Like, how dare you?
Mike.
The gall.
We have heard from you
Apologize.
on this.
You should apologize to me and Ryan Cortez. We made it to
The
the
NBA
finals.
should fine people for saying that.
Yes. I'm with you, finally. You say something smart this segment.
Cortez, I love that in the back of that, what you heard was another Chris angling in on Chris Cody's turf with just a whimpered 4 games. 4 games is the sample that you're using. They're the best team in the league because they're 4-0 in their last 4 games.
What have you done for me lately? I mean,
Or 25th in the NBA in offensive rating.
You shut
They have
your
all
mouth.
kinds of flaws right now. I will say,
Whittingham, not every stat needs to be said, Whittingham. Keep it to yourself.
Cortez, who spams the chat with stats. Okay. But the Philly thing, I think we can all agree on the Philly thing. It is a complete abomination that their fans want to say anything after the embarrassment of their first round last year. I cannot believe that 32 games later, after they were swept out of the playoffs, they have the gall to say literally anything.
Say the F word. Do it.
Say it.
Say
Say
it.
it. Say it.
Oh, come on.
Just say it. No.
He's a professional.
Say it. Let's go. Never said it. He's never said
want
it.
to say it on the podcast.
Say it.
Say the
Say
F word.
it.
Come out of my
Say
chest.
it.
Just say it.
Don't
Say
do
it.
it.
You said the Sixers. I wouldn't even go that far.
Whittingham! Oh my God, you've turned Whittingham, the most professional among us, with your evil sorcery.
He's a neutral, and he said the Sixers.
He is a professional broadcaster of the highest order.
He's going to lose jobs because of what he just said.
Say it again.
Say it one more time.
One more time. Shh.
I'm actually a little sympathetic to the Sixers.
Wait. Say it.
Sixers.
A little more depth.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Like,
Just a little more.
reach down. Come on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's reaching down for you. Yes.
Stugotz here. I love telling you about ZipRecruiter. Been supporting me, Dan, the entire show for many, many years. We appreciate them. And listen, the best teams start with great talent, but finding the right people can be a challenge. But when it comes to hiring for your business, ZipRecruiter can help you find the right candidates for your team fast. From healthcare to manufacturing to business services and more. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. When you post a job on ZipRecruiter, it gets sent out to over 100 top job sites with one click. Then ZipRecruiter's matching technology scans thousands of resumes and profiles to send you the most qualified people for your job. If you're really interested in a candidate, simple. You invite them to apply for your job. With one click, ZipRecruiter sends them an email from you, and you stand out from the competition. It's so effective that 4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. And right now, to try ZipRecruiter for free, my listeners can go to ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. That's ZipRecruiter.com/DAN. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Who's
5
the guy
p.m.
with the
today.
Funny name on the Sixers that starts with an F? I think.
Furkan Korkmaz?
I thought you were going to go
Furkan.
I thought you were going to go there. I thought that's where.
I was looking up this Ronin movie, by the way.
Oh, it's terrible.
Robert De Niro, I know I'm going to get crushed for this. Robert De Niro is supposed to be a cool person, like just career-wise. He's a cool guy, Robert De Niro.
He was really cool in Taxi Driver.
Well, you know what's interesting about this, Billy? It's funny that you should bring that up because De Niro has done so many grandpa movies lately and some
That's the thing.
Weird choices that Billy literally doesn't remember when De Niro was cool.
They're not weird choices. He's out of choices. I mean, that's what he is now.
It's just interesting that someone Billy's age, because this is happening with the age, it's the whole Scorsese argument that he wants something to be film instead of content. Billy doesn't. You don't have any real respect for Robert De Niro in his prime, right, Billy? You're like, when did he get to be cool guy? He's just Meet the Parents guy to you.
Exactly. He's the dad from Meet the Parents, and he played kind of like an older, retired,
That's funny,
kind of cool guy at the time. That I felt bad for Greg. I feel like Greg, was just trying to do right and marry the girl of his dreams, and his dad is here just kind of being a pain in the ass the whole time with his weird ass cat. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to paint your cat's tail. And he just put it off of Greg's back. Jeez Louise.
Should I walk back that he was cool in Taxi Driver?
Yeah, probably.
Why? Just because of like the character's relationship
character
with Jodie
was
Foster,
totally creepy. Yes.
Yeah, but in pop culture lore, he was like maybe he was the Mohawk. Travis Bickle was viewed as a cool character.
But I don't understand.
Cool psychopath.
So Billy, when De Niro and Pacino are meeting on screen for the first time in Heat, and it's the height of the profession because these two guys who are not street toughs have gotten all the street tough roles and bad guy roles because Scorsese's amazing and because their story was made by the same mythologies we're talking about with Tiger Woods, made by the Scorsese. He's the master of this. You don't remember De Niro being cool, or even in Goodfellas? You don't remember De Niro? No, that's even late De Niro cool. You don't have any access. It begins for you with Meet the Parents on De Niro.
Yeah, I Googled Heat. I didn't know what that was.
Okay, and that's
man. It's a reigning
Not Cortez
Eastern
is going
Conference
to come in and tell me what a great movie it was. Underrated.
So let me ask you guys something as we talk about old school stuff here as it relates to sports, because right now I am going to talk, I believe, only to Stugotz and Roy. I don't know if I'm going to reach old head Roy on this, but something made its way through my timeline the other day that was pre-90s baseball that made only people in the demo of me and Stugotz smile. And Roy, I don't think you even reach into this old man demo of when baseball was a thing in the 80s. But a delightful name made its way across my timeline the other day from High Heat Stats. Some of Ryan Cortez's and Mike Ryan's favorite stats because of High Heat and because of what homers they are. The name Mario Soto.
Oh God!
Thank you. It's like I just tell
Red
the people.
Ace.
Okay, hold on. I want to tell the audience this because this is just me and Stugotz going down a nostalgic old man. Roy, you don't know who I'm talking about, do you?
No, unfortunately.
All right, so this even predates Roy, but the reason I wanted to bring it up is only for this. Mario Soto in 83 and 84. Yes, Red's ace, as Stugotz said through delighted giggles.
That's all I know about.
31 complete games. Okay, over this 5-year period, he struck out more dudes than Nolan Ryan, than Steve Carlton, than Fernando Valenzuela. Mario Soto was an exotic ace from another island and another land. And again, I'm going to say it again in what you've seen happen to baseball. 31 complete games between 1983 and 1984. And again, over a 5-year period, more strikeouts than Nolan Ryan, Steve Carlton, and Fernando Valenzuela. This guy was simply a strikeout machine. Retired at 31 because we didn't know anything about bodies and science and what you're supposed to be doing with the human arm. Retired at 31. A workhorse because he used up all his innings in those 2 seasons, striking everybody in the world out.
I'm looking at the stats right now. Those 2 seasons, those 4 seasons actually, he was north of 256 innings pitched. I mean,
he was robbed of the Cy Young.
He was robbed of his career. He was robbed by science of his entire career. Like, if we just treated arms the way that we do now, this guy would have pitched for 15 years.
But Billy's talking about the 18-3 season. He finished second in the Cy Young. I have no idea who finished first, but that was one of the all-time great individual seasons. It's
John
also the
Denny.
season. Yeah, really?
John Denny. Jesus.
Really? It's also the season that ended his career. I mean,
but think about how much we've evolved just all over sports. I remember the other day, I think it was Mike talking about one of these stories, Russell Wilson spending $1 million on his body. And we say that now, but when you consider, like in NASCAR, what the car is worth and what they're willing to destroy, again and again to preserve things at that rate of speed. An athlete at that income level, that investment level, an economy for a city level, LeBron James spending only $1 million on his body is him under caring for his body, given what Tom Brady is now doing with his body at 43 and what the aging process can be. What do you guys make of LeBron? Seriously, in his last 9 games, shooting 19% from 3. This is as loudly as I believe LeBron James can say to the audience in disguise, oh, I don't care about basketball this season. I'm running around here and we're grabbing at all the money, but I'm just going to keep taking these shots from far away because these games don't matter, and I know how great I am. And why would I abuse my body this way in a regular season through a pandemic when we're just grinding our way through to grab at dollars? He's just shooting the ball. It doesn't matter. When Anthony Davis gets back, he will be great, and they will both raise it to another level. And in the interim, he's going to take a bunch of threes and just run around the court not caring much at all.
I think he cares about the end result deeply. I'm with you on the regular season. I don't think he cares.
But he's playing so many minutes that it's weird, right? These two things, he's playing so many. Here you got Steve Kerr holding Steph Curry out 5. He's getting people. I don't know if he's still doing this, but he was doing it recently. Steph Curry, they're limiting his minutes over there, and he wasn't playing but 4 or 5 minutes in the fourth quarter because it's ridiculous what they're doing to the human bodies right now just to grind through this to the money. And LeBron knows it, and so why has he got to care about this, whether they're a 2 seed, a 4 seed, a 6 seed, until Anthony Davis gets back?
He's done caring about seeds and home court advantage. He's done caring about all that stuff. But they have talked about, him taking some time off, a game here, a game there. They don't want to do it. Yeah. Like LeBron doesn't want to do it. He's like, no, I'm going to punch the clock every day.
Billy, why are you laughing?
I am paid to play basketball.
Billy, what are you laughing about?
Just the chat is better than the show, no offense. But Cortez just comes in here. LeBron's a fraud at this age. He needs Anthony Davis. And I'm telling him, you got to come out and say this. Just say that he's a fraud. Say it.
Well, it's obvious.
What's the problem? I said it already. You said it for me. He is a fraud. Like, the stats show that. And look, it's cute. Like, at 37, what he's doing, it's impressive for his age, all that.
It's cute.
It's cute. The last 4 games without Anthony Davis, they have the second worst offensive rating in the NBA. Yeah, Whittingham, I know, 4 games, blah, 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 but it matters.
4
okay?
games?
4 games.
Like, you ultimate sample size guy, like 4 games? All of a sudden, LeBron's a fraud?
Well, hold on a second. In Cortez's defense, it only takes 4 wins to win a championship. So
in Cortez's defense, that's a bigger sample size than I've ever used.
He did miss the playoffs without Anthony Davis.
Also, LeBron does care about regular season stuff because he has this axe to grind about the MVP. He is like so mad. I think it's been since 2013 since he's won the MVP, and you kind of go through it year by year. There's a case to be made that he shouldn't have been in any of those years, but he wants to win that award again.
But to Cortez's point, he does suck without Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis is the MVP of that
Sucking
team.
is strong.
He's not good.
It's strong, but if Anthony Davis's legs aren't right in the playoffs, like they're not winning the title, period. And I don't trust that they're going to look 100% right now.
Chris Cody is shooting a shot from the shadows saying that we have to start playing the highfalutin music on Whittingham. He is saying that Whittingham is going all snobby with the stats. Chris is feeling threatened from every angle here because they're just bombs being thrown above him.
Not threatened. He's playing right in my hand.
All right, so
the
what's
more
happening?
Whittinghams there are, the better it makes us Stugotz's look, right, Stugotz?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so
we need a couple of more Whitties and we're good.
What is the music that you would like? All right, Chris, fine. Fire your salvo from the bottom of the pirate ship because you don't like the shine that Whittingham's getting. What is the music that you would like played every time Whittingham speaks with his 4-game samples, like dismissively? Because Whittingham, you are amongst us, and Cortez loves him some analytics. But amongst us, you
only in 4-game sample sizes. Apparently,
you are the
that favor the Heat.
But you are the math dork. But you are the math among us.
He's back.
What is the music that we're going to hit Whittingham with anytime that he starts yammering about his stats? Because everybody hates the stats guy with glasses. Oh, we don't have any music. We don't have any music.
Can't be it.
This is so bad. Can I get some licensing around here? This is no way to do. We're one of the biggest things in sports, man.
It just snap your fingers, though, doesn't it?
Mike, do I need to write more money for more checks, for more music licensing so that we can have a highfalutin sound that we can play? All right, I'm segueing into something else in sports. I wanted to talk to you guys about something more serious.
Oh, no.
Yes, because I wanted to ask you, Stugotz, and I doubt that you paid attention to this, but if you are somebody who cares about the macro in sports, I actually thought that the piece that Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta did on DeMaurice Smith and the union,
the deep dive,
I believe it to be the single best thing that I have seen written on sports labor for our times, in terms of you needing to learn stuff that people in sports don't want to learn because the business of sports is tough, and it's tough to business report, and it's tough because these rich guys can hide in the shadows so much with their money. There aren't clear-eyed views on what just transpired over the last 15 years in America's most popular sports that left the player with leadership that was selfish, that DeMaurice Smith became an ally to Roger Goodell, and in becoming an ally to Roger Goodell, he got trampled, preserving and protecting his own job. If you read the reporting, read between the lines, and you can see that in the age of streaming and content and everything else, the players got bleeped in that sport because DeMaurice Smith was their leader and was interested in staying their leader. And if you read some of this stuff and you talk to people, because this was the best examination of the union I've seen, but they missed on a couple of key points, even in going as deep as they did, Stugotz. The idea that this guy, DeMaurice Smith, did 2 10-year deals to protect him and his position, owner-friendly deals, in an era where rights deals and revenue and franchise values have exploded. The middle of the NFL is gone. Almost like 55% of the league makes minimum wage. Like, that's a clown show that the NFL just got a lot richer. The owners just got rich with DeMaurice Smith as their leader in the other camp. If you're like reading everything that's happening in that story, and it's one of the best. That's just the tip of the iceberg on like, oh, wait, they got sold out by their own union guy. And even guys that we know to be brilliant, like Dominique Foxworth, will admit to you, yeah, I was too young. I didn't know what I was fighting for there. I was really smart, but I wasn't worldwide wise about what the future of the sport. Even Dominique Foxworth, who we know to be brilliant, like will admit to you, yeah, in those meetings, I wasn't secure enough. I'm smart, and the owners took them. The owners just buried them across years. And now Jerry Jones, as natural gas goes up, and in Texas, he runs the place, most powerful owner in sports. They bleeped these guys with DeMaurice Smith's help, and the media isn't strong enough to dig deep enough to understand the business, to get in the shadows to see where the owners did their dirty work. Because Aaron Rodgers was on the other side yelling, oh, this is a bad deal. Bad deal. Like, this is going to, and they've wiped out the middle class.
Yeah, but every time there's an NFL negotiation, the owners know that they don't have to deal with what the Players Association does. There's no window for you to be an NFL owner. You just have to be rich enough, and you can do that as long as your life continues. In the NFL, as much as Aaron Rodgers can say, well, it's not a good deal. It's easy for Aaron Rodgers to say because he has a financial security of knowing he's Aaron Rodgers. He's made his money.
But, Mike, what do you do if you're the players, the guy in charge, the guy you've entrusted to handle this business for you is not handling it?
No, he is. He is.
But he's handling it for himself.
No, he's handling it for the players. Every player has an equal vote in there. The fact is that the Players Union is, yes, made up of Aaron Rodgers, and it's sexy. We'll grab those headlines. But it's also the guy in the practice squad that realizes, I've got a 2-year window here, maybe, and there isn't another league that I can go to. And if we decide that we're not going to play this season, they're just going to get another undrafted free agent. The owners know this. DeMaurice Smith, yes, it's unfair. But if I'm one of those guys, if I'm the 53rd man on the roster, to hell with sitting out a year and grandstanding and making some sort of virtue play. I need to make my money, and DeMaurice Smith needs to help me get my money.
It is something that if you care to read stuff that is some heavy lifting, again, it wasn't a perfect piece, but I remember thinking in real time, and I sure as hell didn't have the facility to be able to do it, to know what business reporting it would take to truly understand what has happened as what you have being reported. I don't know How much more damning an article can I write? ESPN writing with its two big guns, Seth Wickersham, who digs deep on stuff, and Don Van Natta, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner, that they would be doing a story on how it is that DeMaurice Smith went from looking publicly like he was defending the players at every turn, fighting for the union, getting into public scraps with Roger Goodell. But the truth is, over these contracts, they're so owner-friendly that he's now an ally to Roger Goodell, that he's a partner in the worst ways, where your players don't feel like they're partners with your league, but you do? Man, that is a scathing indictment. If I'm a player in that league and I'm reading that story and I'm any kind of discerning, I'm like, wait a minute. Our leader? What happened here? Why is he friends with Goodell, who's making $30 and $40 million a year? Why are they adding games and player health? Owners just want more games and player health as we knock out the entirety of the middle class of the sport. Like, that happened. That with 10-year deals that were unnecessary because football's king sport, and the entire system is lined up to say, well, the players are greedy, they shouldn't hold out in a salary cap sport where the Jerry Joneses of the world get rich and richer and richer. It is when you're talking about America's most popular sport, given how much we care about that sport, given how much we care about money, given how much we seem to care about the business of sports.
I don't know if they care about this, Dan. I don't know. I don't know if people who consume the NFL, people who are fans. I'm a fan of the NFL.
So it's just another stadium deal conversation. You don't care that the labor might have gotten bleeped by the guy who was entrusted to lead the labor.
Man, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm a fan. I care that every Sunday I turn my television on, and at 1 o'clock there's a bunch of games. At 4 o'clock there's a bunch of games. At Sunday night there's one game. On Monday night occasionally there's two, but usually one. And on Thursday night I get bad football, and I love it.
I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, stronger leadership is one of the answers, but you got to be needing players to make a sacrifice and willingly end their careers, in essence, for the greater good. And why should people make that sacrifice?
The middle class cannot make the sacrifice. They can be replaced, and no one really cares about the middle class. I've said this for a million years, and only Dominique Foxworth actually paused and said, you know what? Good idea. The quarterbacks are the only ones that people care about. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, you guys play. We're going to sit out until we get this right for the entirety of the league, because we can play now till we're 43 because the rules suggest that no one can touch us.
I will say, though, and all of what you're saying is fair, but it's, again, just like you did with Ichiro needs to lead the Asian charge on this. You're saying Aaron Rodgers do more. He was shouting from the mountaintops, this is a bad deal, but you want him to go the next step, and no, he's got to sit. It's got to be such a bad deal that, I mean, okay.
No, he's got to get in there with DeMaurice Smith and be like, what are you doing here?
Okay, well, he was, publicly and privately. He was.
Okay, but then you got to be, Dan,
okay, so you got to be able to walk away. So I have to walk away. Let's see, I've got some conflict with ESPN. You say, in a free speech time across this America, I've got a conflict with ESPN. I have to not only be willing to say it publicly, I've got to be willing to publicly walk away from my team. I've got to do it. I've got a responsibility to take the greatest of stands on behalf of the business.
How long do you think he'd actually have to walk away? There are only a couple of guys that resonate.
Yes, it's going to be your answer again and again. Yes, even though he was shouting to everybody, this is a bad deal we're signing.
But if Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, starting quarterbacks sit, right? The best Drew Brees, they sit. They're not playing,
okay,
right?
They negotiated this, though.
But how quickly would they get it right, the owners?
But they did what the labor wanted them to do.
They wouldn't. You don't think they don't like that DeMaurice Smith can be the bad guy instead of Aaron Rodgers? You think they want that shit in their lives? All of a sudden, 53rd man on the roster is contacting me directly saying, what the hell are you doing, Tom Brady? Take this deal. I got a family to legitimately feed. You
think the owners, the NFL, want a world where we're not watching football because Aaron Rodgers is not playing quarterback? Mike, you're not going to watch if he's not playing.
They have the trump card.
That's the one guy.
They have the trump card. They don't have a window to worry about. And that's going to be the case with that sport always. It's why it's the toughest sport to collectively bargain.
Well, it's such a hard spot Stugotz is putting the quarterbacks in, because that sport is built, unlike I feel like any other that we've had in our lifetime. Hey, all these bodies are disposable except a couple of them. We're going to throw all of this physically into the meat chipper. And there'll be an occasional J.J. Watt who gets to be Captain America, but mostly the league is run on a dozen bodies, really. Like where, not even Michael Thomas, who's great at what he does. Michael Thomas.
It's Brady, it's Rodgers.
I mean, the bodies are disposable.
Yes.
The entire construct of the thing, the guys who really have the power are 12 guys, 15 guys, 20 guys. And Stugotz is saying they're the guys that absolutely have to sit, as Mike is saying what he's saying, which is they sit, they got their money.
I understand.
But hold on with I understand, Stugotz. Hold on with I understand. They sit, they get their money. Now make it a little more human. Don't be quite so disposable with these players. Now the guy in Aaron Rodgers' huddle who has blocked for him is calling him and saying, Aaron, what are you doing? I got two babies, and look, the fringes in this league, it's really disposable. I'm talking about my life here, my career. I might not be able to make money 5 years from now, and my body's not going to work right. What do you mean we're going to hold out for 2 seasons in my prime as I'm hanging on to the fringes of the league?
No, Aaron's saying, hey, I'll hold out. This won't take long. We'll hold out. You guys play football. You play with the backup quarterbacks. We'll hold out until we get this right. And by will, it's me, it's Tom Brady, and it's a handful of other quarterbacks. That's it. That's all I'm saying. You guys play. We'll get the deal right for everybody. This won't take long because the league's not going to go more than a couple of weeks without us playing quarterback on our respective teams.
The problem is us as customers. We're not pro-labor in this debate. Not only do the owners know that they don't have to worry about their age or shrinking window, they know that the public is on the side of the owners because it's always spoiled greedy players. It's never spoiled greedy owners. And they have controlled that narrative, and we'll lop it up.
But don't you think, Mike, we'd come around if every Sunday we're not watching Lamar Jackson, we're not watching Tom Brady, we're watching their backups. Everyone else is playing. We're not watching them. We're watching their backups.
I know, but Stugotz, in that article that you did not read, Dominique Foxworth was saying in the FUs back and forth with Jerry Richardson, good luck filling your stadium. Good luck filling your stadium with Ryan Leafs. And Dominique will tell you he wasn't sophisticated enough to be in that room. He was brilliant, Harvard mind. But what ended up happening is they got a bad deal, and it's becoming obvious now. And in the streaming content time, you can't sign for 10 years.
It works. Not playing. A strike works. Scab players, that shit works. We saw what happened in the high-profile referee thing with the Fail Mary at the end of Monday Night Football. Then all of a sudden, the entire sporting public is on the side of the referees saying, you have to fix this. The games are terrible. The public would feel that way exactly as you said, if it's not Lamar Jackson, if it's some player that was in the XFL taking his place. But the leverage is that 53rd man roster guy isn't going to stand for it.
Do you think the public would be more willing to side with the players if those players were the quarterbacks?
Yeah, but they need to fix the messaging. I don't know how it is they get the public on their side.
I don't, though, because the whole point is that there is a leverage problem because fans side with the owners. Also, fans, if there was a strike, even if they were sympathetic, they would still come back at the end of the strike to being fans of the sport. There are not fans who are leaving the NFL if all of a sudden there is a labor dispute. If fans eventually came back to the NHL after a year, people love their football. That is the trump card that the owners hold.
Do you guys realize that what's fascinating about how some of this stuff ends up mushroom clouding and sports becomes a symbol for everything that happens in America when you talk about the entirety of the construct systemically? Media, fans, owners line up against the black body, line up against the source of coal in this furnace that is hugely profitable in America, our escape hatch. Sports is the thing. The bodies are the thing. These graceful, bigger, stronger, faster bodies are the thing that fuel the entire machine. But the rest of the construct, from consumer to journalist to networks that profit off of this stuff, you did see, right, when Jalen Johnson ends up sort of trying to be a guy in the system at Duke, and Duke, he is viewed as the lazy or the athlete that you can't count on, quitter on his team, that it was Seth Davis and Dan Dockich and a whole bunch of white old guys telling Jalen Johnson, hey, you need to be playing for the Duke machine. Don't be your AAU self. The entire, it's just a bunch of old middle-aged white guys profiting off of this thing, condemning the guy who's coming up through the system at the start, his body, for being a quitter, for not be, and now Duke's better off without him anyways, because it's Duke. It's the glory mythology of Duke. They don't need one of those pro-mercenary guys who's selfish. You understand how the entire construct is built against these guys so that the 53rd guy on the roster, he's not going to win, and Stugotz is going to be on the radio telling you that Aaron Rodgers needs to sit so that he can win. Like that, and you're right.
So everyone could win.
But you're right. You're right. They could have done that too for Colin Kaepernick. I think that problem would have gotten solved a lot better than it did, which is the NFL just saying, okay, never mind. Chiefs and racism is bad in the Super Bowl end zone. Chiefs right next to each other. Comedy you can't write. End racism, Chiefs in the end zone. You can't write comedy like that. Do you realize the suckers that we are? Now, looking back on everything that happened, honestly, and I don't want to do Kaepernick's show, but looking back at all of it, the NFL turning course in the pandemic, like this is laugh-out-loud comedy funny right now, being like, oh, yeah, we got Kaepernick wrong. Woo! And Goodell hotfoots out of there, the pinata that he is. Look at him, liar. The owners win again. Not only do they get all the money, they blackballed Kaepernick, and they got away with it. Like, that happened. That happened in our lifetimes with, like, screaming in the streets. That happened to us. And Jerry Jones is smoking cigars made of dollars with natural gas money he's gouging with as Texas freezes because he wins again.
And they get their own DeMaurice Smith and Roger Goodell, who takes all the bad PR. That's why that job pays so well.
Holy shit. But Stugotz, it's like a Shakespearean play. DeMaurice Smith and Roger Goodell burning cigars made of money, laughing at the labor because and you here still not blaming them, saying the players need to do more. All the quarterbacks need to sit. You, part of the media machine.
Why are you pointing at me?
Because you rain down systemic racism upon the system, Gotts.
I've never seen a Shakespearean play. I don't know what you're talking about.